Welcome back to the Grand Cinema Hotel. As always, I'm your host, Gus, and I'm joined with my co-host, Alvaro.
What's up, guys?
Happy belated birthday. Let's start there. How about that?
Thank you.
Fun experience, I would say, for your birthday, where we went and saw Poor Things. How was the experience for you?
We went to the Americana, which is, I've only been there like twice, I think.
Yeah.
Before that, so never been around Christmas. I do think one of the things the bigger cities get right is giving you that Christmas experience in a place that has no snow. They
Very
always try
Home
to make
Alone
you,
2, right?
Yeah, it was really nice. So, it was a nice date.
Pretty much. We had some whiskey sours.
Yeah, at the MacGuffin, that's I do think ultimately the most like comfortable you could be is probably like at the movie theaters like that. And we never really drink there, obviously, and it's always just because driving and stuff like that. But Poor Things is a pretty long movie.
We usually be smoking at the AMC.
Yeah, exactly. Which also happened, but Poor Things is a longer film, and yeah, I had to celebrate. It was really fun. And Poor Things is obviously, this whole episode is going to be dictated about our, best of the year, which has been an amazing year. And I do think watching one of the films that's in the top 5 for me, and I don't know, maybe for you too, is like a great way to spend your birthday,
Yeah, I mean, I really like that movie. The more I think about it, I like it more. I haven't seen it as many times as you have, obviously. Did you say twice or 3 times now?
Twice.
Yeah, you usually are a twice guy, right?
Yeah.
I don't have that luxury as much to see a movie twice, but when I do only see it once, I tend to think about it a lot more because I'm like, God, like Oppenheimer. I've only seen Oppenheimer once, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to talk about that movie later at some point. And I feel like I have more to say even though I haven't seen it because like I spent so much time thinking about it, and then like I see so many clips of it, and then people bring it up, and then like the music, it's become part of like culture now. I don't know if you've seen like people use the music on TikTok and stuff for like dumb, stupid fucking TikTok memes and things like that. Like it's just kind of woven into the fabric of society now, where it's like, even though I haven't seen it 8 times like somebody has, I feel like it's still on the forefront, and that's always a good sign for the movies of the year was what I'm trying to say. Sorry. The year in movies, because there's been other years where, I don't know, 2018, for instance, I'm sure if I go back, there's some heaters that I'm like, oh yeah, that's one of my favorite movies or whatever, but not like 2019, not like even 2022 or this year, 2023. I was going to bring this up later, but we might as well ask now. How are you feeling about this year and the 2020 so far? Do you have a favorite year? Is this it?
That's a good question. I mean,
last
year is pretty hard to contend, honestly.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. Maybe it has a lot to do. It might be honestly, it might be between this year and last year, but I do think this year might inch it out a little bit more. It sucks because ultimately all of this discussion would have probably just been a Dune 2 episode. It had everything gone down to like how we wanted. So
here you go, bringing that up.
So, just teasing the last part of this. But like, I do think had you attach Dune 2 to this whole lineup too, be like, oh my God, this year would be insane, But I actually do think I'll take this year. But I think what I was going to say is that in how we do this in the movies that we watch and how many we watch and what we look forward to, I do think the palette has been refined every single year. So maybe I just find now films like that get added to my personal favorite collection. Cause I'm seeing these as they happen. And that feels to me more authentic to me than obviously I know, Dog Day Afternoon is really good because I've been, stuff like that. It's like that could be in my favorites, but it does ultimately feel like, because this is one of the best movies I've seen, and it's been time has tested this. But when I see something that just came out and I feel like this is just as good as, and it could crack a top 10 of mine, it's kind of like, well, I feel like I have a better way of discussing this. Like I'm forefronting here that this is one of the best films that was ever been made.
Yeah, I always have kind of felt that way too. I remember when we first started the podcast, we had said that one of our, I guess, mission statements was to be champions of the cinema that comes out that we really love. And I still feel this way. And I don't want to speak for you, but that I'm not opposed to one of my favorite movies of all time being a movie that just came out. I don't understand why that is such an issue with some people. It's like, it doesn't stand the test of time. And from my point of view, I'm like, I'm trying to tell you it's already classic on arrival, you know? Like, there's movies that sometimes feel like they've always should have existed, you know? For me, that would be one like maybe Asteroid City or Past Lives. Past Lives feels like a movie that just revealed itself, like it should have always been there, you know, like in the fabric of cinema. So that's why I don't have a problem saying one of my favorite movies is a new movie. And in the past 3 years, even going back to 2019, I would say that's where a lot of them become like, oh, this is one of my favorite movies. You know, like from the 2010s to 2000, probably 17, there's not that many movies where I'm like, oh, this is one of my favorite movies ever.
Yeah, exactly.
And maybe it just happens, like you say, you refine the palette when you watch. This is a transition to one of my next subjects, trying to get to 365 movies. You do start to have a bigger appetite. And like you said, a more refined palette, because you're watching so many things that things start to become repetitive. You know, you're like, okay, well, I've already seen this movie that did that and it was so much better. And well, I watched it on HBO Max, so it's still pretty relevant to people. You know, it's like, it's not like it's this hidden thing that you can't go see. And yeah, I just feel like maybe it is because we watch so many movies now, but it's like, I do have a higher ceiling of what I think is good, great, or even mid, you know? Like, the bad movies are always going to really stand out as bad. I don't think you need to watch 300, 200 movies to know what's bad. But I do think once you start hitting certain numbers, and I'm not just talking about in a year, but over time, like if you've seen 1,000 movies, it's like you're a pretty versed movie watcher, you know, like it's hard to ask anything to be fresh and original at this point, you know, like if you've seen the top 250 here, the Sight and Sound 100 best, you know, whatever, like those are really the fabric and the blueprint. So everything is coming from that. So it's like, what are you doing to subvert that or do something new and fresh? And that's why you can only have like 10 favorites in a year. Or like, I know you like to do sometimes up to 25, you know, and everything else is kind of like, it's okay, right? Or it's not offensive, but it's not, what are we doing here? You know, like, is there too many movies?
Yeah.
Do you feel like there's too many movies? Not enough good movies, too many nothing movies, right?
I think there's just a lot of movies that follow like something that's been done again that they know works, that has a formula, right? And there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think that those necessarily stand out in any aspect unless you have a personal connection to, maybe I really like this actor or this scene, but I'm like, those feel to me more in line of like you throw that on just because you want to be entertained. It never really feels like this is this is someone's artistic view on something or personal view on something, or they're showing their love of the subject matter, which I end up thinking that my favorite movies feel like the director, like you said, like these films would be made either by somebody else or somebody else feels like this exact way. So it's crazy that nobody's done this before. And I mean, even for example, getting ahead of ourselves, like Iron Claw, be like, yeah, like The Wrestler exists, you know, and it's like
great boxing movies exist.
Yeah,
you know?
So it is something that is, you know how to approach that subject, but it's like, well, now we're talking about
niche, really, right? It shouldn't be.
But now we're talking about a very specific subject that you're like, damn, it's crazy that a movie about this situation hasn't actually existed before. Or then you think about it, you're like, somebody was gonna make this. Because somebody was gonna be like, "Oh,
these
we should."
Stories that need to be told.
Yeah, like this is what the movies are for, you know. And I think maybe those end up being my favorite because I'm like, they stand as mission statements, I think, to cinema. And I think I was bringing this up to you yesterday. Like a lot of movies that we like or that ended up now being cult favorites, really good, you know, Paris, Texas, stuff like that. Like they weren't really that hot on arrival when they first came out.
Not well regarded at all.
Or like they're okay. Like people are like they're okay, but then they stood the test of time. And sometimes when you've now you're like in the future being able to see like, oh, I see why like ahead of its time, maybe something like Blade Runner where you're like, okay, like I see now what it is to be like underrated, what an underrated film might have, like the issues, maybe, you know, this movie could be boring to people, end up standing the test of time because there's people who end up being inspired by those things. And there's a lot of movies that I'm like, that may be the test of time, like where they're not for me, but like, you know, I'd like to think like 3.5. It's like somebody's going to watch a 3.5 movie that I think is going to be inspired to make a 5. And then that 3.5 becomes a better film because you're like, it actually, it knew what it was doing. It just didn't execute it well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's like when you watch certain films, like I have no problems watching films like that. And I think they end up being like more valuable later. So like you said, in the same way, sometimes when I watch something, they'll be like, no, this in 50 years from now will be in the top 250s like list because people will be like, no, that, yeah, like, you know, something like that. Or you're like, Titan, no, Titan is going to be really good, you know, or
some kid is going to see Titan. And if they're still making movies when they get old enough, if they're not all just thrown in some kind of dungeon for tax write-offs or whatever, somebody's going to be inspired by that movie the same way that she was by the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, you know? And then it's like, what the hell is going to come from that? It's a whole new branch in the tree, you know?
Same thing with like, I feel like the one that I feel like that a lot about is like the X trilogy, I guess you could call it, right? So it's like X and Pearl, like, while I obviously like X more, I do think that those films are going to stand the test of time and people are going to be inspired, like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like,
this is why film restoration is important too, and keeping these films available to watch is that, say one day the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for some reason is not available to watch, and then it's only the X trilogy. What the fuck is that? You know, like that's a scary future to also think about. Is that some people won't have these movies anymore, like the shows that are on HBO Max, or I don't know if Apple's done it, or Netflix or Disney, where it's like the show, they made it and it just doesn't exist anymore. And can you really blame people with all these options if they didn't watch a show that could possibly be very good in the timely manner that you wanted them to, so it just doesn't exist anymore? Like, why not give it? Wasn't the point of streaming that you could give it all this time to build up, you know? Like, what would be a movie like Beast of No Nation when that came out a long time ago on Netflix, right? It's like that movie had legs because it was just available to watch, and it wasn't like 6 months, nobody's seen it, just fucking throw it in the dungeon. It didn't exist. Forget it ever happened.
It's like, it is interesting because you already spent the money for it to be made. So what? How does it possibly hurt to just keep it up in a thing that's just it's streaming? It's not like it hurts you to keep it up. It's not like a physical at a movie theater taking up a screen, you know? So
being a fan of the medium that is regressing more and more and more is already sad enough. But to think that like maybe these movies that I really like and think in 25 years will inspire somebody might not even be available to watch is like the saddest part, right?
Yeah.
That's what really gets me down when I think about like the business side of movies and why it's like, God, that's so sad, you know?
Yeah, no, I agree in that aspect.
Oh, not to be too dour, but I wanted to ask you, the future is still bright for next year, right? At least it seems like it at first glance. Is there anything you're looking forward to besides Dune? And I want to give you a chance to answer on your own first before I provide some possibilities. But I don't want to put you on the spot either. So if you're not ready, let me know.
Do you know? Well, I don't even think it's coming out next year. I think one that's like just comes to head right now, I'll probably come up with more, would be Ethan Coen's movie, The Drive-Away Dolls, because that's coming up pretty soon.
Should come out next year. It was supposed to come out this year, I believe,
yeah,
right?
And the strike happened. Yeah. So, I, like, just right on top of my head, I don't even know if it'll be, like, amazing, you know, but I'm willing to watch that.
The Bike Riders, maybe?
The Bike Riders.
That's the one that, yeah. I didn't even write that down, but that is the one that I'm the most excited for, actually, because it is also a victim of just being not released. Challengers. What do you think about Challengers? Yeah.
The other one that I am really looking forward to, and I wish I could have watched it this year, so it kind of fits that, is Perfect Days, Wim Wenders' new movie.
I just seen a trailer for it when I went to go see The Boy and the Heron.
Yeah,
so, but that doesn't mean anything at AMC nowadays, does it?
I think like this movie, it came out, you can only see it this year in New York. They didn't even in LA. They're like, we don't care about that. So only in New York, and then I think it's coming out. It's supposed to come out this year, pretty soon. So That's another one. A24's movie with Kirsten Stewart. Name is escaping me.
Rose Glass.
Yeah, Rose
Director
Glass is
Saint
second.
Maud.
Yeah, that's
so
really good.
Let's go. This is the one I'm probably the most excited for in the near future because I'm pretty sure it's coming out
It's one of the
soon.
best. One of the best trailers I've seen in a long time.
I know. It's like, are they doing the Hulk kind of? You know. Let's talk about A24 slate a little bit while we're here because the future is looking extremely commercial, which is something we had mentioned a while back and a few episodes ago.
Yes. Civil War.
Yeah. Yes. Civil War. It was funny to meme on it, but it is a science fiction movie, so of course it's not going to be exactly realistic. You know, it's a beans and toast motherfucker writing this movie. What do you expect, right? I wouldn't expect him to really know the geographical politics of America, right? But he's one of our guys, kind of. I don't know if we talked about this when we did the Men episode, but Alex Garland, is he a top 10 filmmaker for you, like working now?
Yeah, I think so.
I like he flirts with the area, maybe.
I like him enough. I mean, people have
movies.
their issues with Men, obviously, but I do think that he's earned his respect, especially with 28 Days Later, stuff like that.
Dread.
I think like his writing is definitely never the issue. Maybe a little bit too on the nose for some people, but I don't know.
The thing you're saying you like is like what most people don't like about him. So
I also think like the criticism I think of the criticism of the unreality of Civil War is that it is kind of insane because it's like, well, if you did pay any attention, be like during the presidential election, like Texas was blue for like 70% of the time it was up there, and that had never happened.
Mm-hmm.
So this coming to a near conclusion with how many Californians are moving to Texas, it's not that actually that crazy of a premise. So it is that's what always is funny to me because it's like, really, that's the crazy part to you. Okay, like be like, and that's fine, I guess, but that's why I talk about kind of that's lazy film criticism. Be like, that is a crazy thing to stand on when there's other stuff that, like, I just saw a movie about Godzilla, man. Like, I don't what do you mean this is the craziest part that and
besides that, does it look mid? I feel like the trailer's just not great. It doesn't look any different to me than like something like White House Down or Olympus Has Fallen, except with like a bunch of good actors running around. So that kind of gives me the benefit of the doubt that it's like, oh, maybe it will be interesting. It's got this weird fusion to me of like, it kind of looks like a mix and vibe of like Sicario and Olympus Has Fallen. But I don't know. I mean, I'm excited because I like Jesse Plemons. Kirsten Dunst, I'm like hit or miss. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't form a bond with her as Mary Jane when I was a kid in Spider-Man movies, so I've always just been kind of like whatever about her.
He's a newspaper writer. He's a photographer.
Yeah. I was just like, whatever. I don't really get the big deal Spider-Man. Yeah. But I don't know. I'm kind of like I'll see it. Yeah. I'm not going to be like, oh, I'm so excited for it, but I respect Alex Garland's body of work enough to just tune in and see what's good.
No, yeah, I'm excited to see it.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was awful.
A24's biggest budget. Yeah. To now.
This could be their Waterworld.
Surpassing yeah, I mean, I think
what happens when it makes like $3 million, you know?
I
think
spent
75.
Yeah. Again, like I think
that's why you make $5 million movies.
Yeah, they're a brand that I think kind of understands that at least. Apple does get it. Like, I've been seeing a lot of people be like, no, they're defending the corporation. But like, some people just, remember when millionaires used to commend art from people to just have it? Like, it didn't matter if they lost money on it. It was just to have it. Mm-hmm. And now, like, that's just saying Apple did with the Killers of the Flower Moon. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, okay, so now we're defending the $1 million company. I see. But it's the same thing here. Like, if A24 loses, I think their model allows them to do that because, any of the movies that they do release for $15 million can be nominated for awards, and the money and the reputation that comes with that surpasses you being able to take a loss like this. Mm-hmm. I think they like Alex Garland enough to take a risk like this. It could be really bad. Don't get me wrong. I'm excited for it, but it could be really
left
bad.
Off Men, like in trailers when they're like from the writer director of this movie, this movie, this movie. They didn't mention Men, and that was his last movie. I don't know why they wouldn't want to, you know, that was a movie that they made. So
Exactly.
interesting, you know, especially like, was this locked in before Men? You know, because sometimes that happens
Yeah.
too, where it's like make Men first and then you can make this movie.
Maybe.
And it's like, okay. And then like, were they just stuck? Like, fuck, we're going to have to make this movie. Like they, you know, like you never know what happens behind the scenes, not to create any kind of stories out of nothing or whatever, but I don't know how these things work. So I don't know. Maybe they're truly excited and they're like, this is the one right here. But it doesn't feel like it. Like, not when I watch the trailer, it doesn't. But I could be wrong. A lot of trailers fucking suck.
It is just, it's a different pivot.
Is this
what
even
it
an
is.
interesting movie to you, though, this concept of the new Civil War?
Sure. I guess, like, you know,
Yeah.
I like, there's like premises that I don't necessarily think they're like, I don't think the holdovers' premise was crazy, but, you know, so that's, I'm like, I think
No, but it
that's-
was wildly entertaining, you know?
I don't know.
As two men who are approaching 30 rapidly, are we supposed to like this? You know, like, is this like, oh, Civil War movie, count me in. Napoleon was the testing ground, right?
Yeah, I think so. But I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna watch it. I'll be there. You know, for sure. I'll be there. And
Transitioning into other movies that 30-year-old men will probably like, Gladiator 2. Does this excite you at all?
Probably not, honestly. But like I said,
Paul
I haven't seen the first
Mescal,
one.
Pedro Pascal.
I don't think it needs a second movie, even though I haven't seen the first one.
Yeah, your movie knowledge is insane because I could tell. Yeah, it doesn't. You know?
It'd be like, you know, like, and I do think if
It's just in name. It's just Gladiator in name. So what's the point, you know? Why is it even called Gladiator 2?
they could just,
That's the only reason to get it made, right?
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's like my biggest thing with it is like, if you just want to make a movie that is like Gladiator, and I guess it's because is Ridley Scott directing it? Yeah, so I guess that's why.
Yeah, sorry.
I guess that's why.
I mean, this is the one that he was flexing on, like, oh, I was done in Napoleon so fast because I had to go shoot
Gladiator
the
2.
second half of Gladiator because I already did 60 days, 80 days, or whatever.
I don't know.
One in
it's
the
like-
can and one to go.
I like Paul Mescal, you know, and I like that he runs away from girls. That's been really funny to read on. I like that a lot. I like
King
that.
behavior.
He was like, oh, hell no. And she's like, you ain't going to catch me slipping. And then
He was running in like a pair of Sambas, too. This man is embodying the old aesthetic. He's destroying his feet just to look cool running in Sambas.
Is it Paul Mescal and it's the Renat running for the worst person in the world. And that's the movie I'm also excited for. She's gonna be in a new name is escaping me. Let me look it up real quick.
I'll just bring one up really quick. I'm a fan of this trilogy. I think it's one of the better blockbuster trilogies of recent memory, and that's the Planet of the Apes franchise. I don't think they've made a bad movie so far in these post what the fuck is his name? Tim Burton, in the post Tim Burton world. But it doesn't look great, and they didn't really need it, but Planet of the Apes has never been a franchise that was worried about, like, do we need this? You know, there's like 10 of them probably all together at least. So I don't know. I'm just kind of excited because I like this. It's obviously a bias. I don't think it's going to be life changing. I don't think it's going to be the Avatar Way of Water of 2024 or anything like that, where it's going to blow up. But I have a soft spot for these monkeys. You know, I really like the full animal thing. This is like this. It's like the same reason I like Avatar. You know, it's like, wow, I'm watching a movie that's not about humans. Like, that on its own is kind of crazy.
I get that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, because
Yeah.
it's like cats is the worst possible scenario, but Avatar and maybe stuff like Planet of the Apes is like, okay, this is not so appalling as something like Cats, where you're like, where are their dicks? You know, like there's no cat butthole. Like, why is Taylor Swift or Jennifer Hudson a cat? You know, like, this is really no, thank you.
That's crazy.
Why is it still Taylor Swift's face but on a cat? You know.
Oh my god. Oh, so I did find it.
That movie caused a rapture, bro. That movie was one of the last things to come out before
and
COVID.
then the COVID was like, did God punished us for this one? He's like, what
We'll
are
be
you
punished
guys
for our
doing?
sins. Did you find the movie you were talking about?
Yeah, so it's a different man. So Sebastian Stan, Renat. I always forget to say her last name.
Oh,
Ransby.
I think we saw this trailer recently. Did we not?
I don't know if there's a trailer, but A24 announced it in their slate for next year. There's a picture of it. like of Sebastian Stan in this movie.
Mm.
It's director Aaron Schimberg, which I think this might be his directorial debut. If I'm looking at it. Oh no, actually that's not true. He has 2 films before this. But yeah, that's a movie that I took. The premise interests me. I'm very, Sebastian Stan. I do like him.
Yes.
I saw him. I like him in Fresh.
Is he what Chris Evans is supposed to be? Where you're like, oh, he is a good actor.
It
like,
switched, right?
Yeah. Chris Evans.
It switched. I
just
never thought about
nothing
that.
but bad choices post MCU, and then Sebastian Stan. You're like, wow,
He
interesting.
he Winter Soldiered him.
Fresh, and this movie coming out, like you said.
And then I like last year I saw him in the movie with Julianne Moore as well that was on Apple TV that I really enjoyed. So I do like Sebastian Stan. So this movie I'm excited for. Is the Batman 2 coming out this year?
No, I believe next year.
Yeah.
You know, not to defend the $1 million corporation, like you said, is Apple TV your favorite content producer of streaming stuff? Like the movies they make, the TV shows they make. Do you think they're the highest quality? HBO, I wouldn't say don't count that because
they just put them on there.
They've been around so long. They're basically like their own studio,
Yeah, no, but HBO I think has down the TV shows. Like historically, you
They're
can't
just
get better
goated.
there.
It's already
Yeah, it's
over.
like the miniseries. Okay, like you're giving them time to cook.
The
Like you're
Sopranos,
fucked.
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, like it's tested. You know
You're
what I
never
mean?
gonna replicate that.
I also think The Wire, right?
Yeah,
Like, come on, like you know what I mean. So it's like if
True Detective.
if HBO has greenlit your series, it has to be a several type of like quality. You know,
the joke used to be it's not TV, it's HBO.
home box office. It's so good.
Yeah.
It should almost be a movie. And it's true though. So I
would say between Netflix, Hulu, Apple, those.
I'll take
Paramount.
Apple because I just think like if Apple does invest the money in a movie, it's also a certain type of quality, and if they put it on there, you're just like I do think there's tastemakers there. Netflix, it's like they take a wild swing and it might work, it might not work. All of a sudden you get Leave the World Behind, and you're kind of like it just becomes the most. It's still I think probably the most popular streaming service, so people will talk about it really fast.
It's the forefronter. That's why they did it first. And because they did it first, nobody thinks about canceling their Netflix and like, oh, I'm just good with Apple and Hulu or whatever. Like Netflix has become cable for most people, I've realized.
Yeah.
So it just, you don't think about that it's Netflix. It's like, turns out most people are happy to just take it in like slop, like, oh, they bring me the stuff. I never have to think about where I'm watching it. I just watch it because it's on Netflix.
Yeah. I don't like the price hikes, and I don't think they're worth that. So I think hopefully they go out of business soon. But
I don't disagree
because I'm fine.
The last good thing they're doing is still giving people crazy budgets with no regard for anything.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say.
Someone else will do it.
Because I'm like, Apple could buy you, and Apple could just do all of it.
There's always going to be some other rich asshole who was like, actually, I'll do this idea better than you. So I don't know. Hey, Yahoo once upon a time used to make TV shows, So who knows what will happen next? There's always going to be somebody who's making this bullshit, honestly. So it doesn't have to be Netflix,
Yeah, no, I agree.
But shout out The Killer. I really liked The Killer. I didn't think it was like a really great movie or anything like that, but it was right up my alley. It was a movie that is just in line with my vibe,
I think there's another one that I have to bring up, 2 of them or 3 actually. I think about Nosferatu.
Oh, I was going to get there, but go ahead.
Mickey 17.
Yes, sir.
And Maxine.
What about Furiosa? Are you excited for that?
Yeah. I'm excited.
Maximalist.
I'm with it.
Maximalist filmmaking on display, right?
Yeah, I'm with that. We will be there. What about even though
he's speaking for me. Whew, got a little hotter into the collar there.
It got changed.
Whiskey
so I'm not sure.
Before Furiosa.
Yeah, it got changed. So I'm not sure. But do you know if
the Jordan
Peele movie?
I don't know if they were too scared to go head to head with the power of Nosferatu.
Yeah, they were like, wait a minute.
But transitioning from Nosferatu, because I already know you're excited about that, and we have the whole year to build this up. What about Christopher Abbott's Wolfman movie?
Yes.
Yes.
Anything Christopher Abbott.
Yes.
Anything. Yeah.
Have you already signed yes, and you don't know anything?
It could be
about
shit. Yeah, I mean, I'm there.
It probably will.
Yeah,
be
probably. Yeah, it sounds like it could be. You know what's a movie actually I did see the trailer for. Recently, I had had it on my watch list, wasn't too just like excited for the cast. Could be just whatever, is The Fall Guy.
I know. I kind of feel the same way. I saw the trailer and I'm like, hey, look, a bad action movie with Ryan Gosling. Like, okay.
Yeah, because it's like that's always the movie.
God, were people angry, right? Why?
Because
it was the Argyle before Argyle. Argyle has superseded the hate. It's like, no, we've all focused on Argyle being the worst thing I've ever seen.
You're so tired of seeing the. I mean, it is pretty.
All guys like, oh, people, it's kind of going under. No one's remembering it right now because Argyle's got a powerful stink on it.
It's like I'm just interested, because I did like Bullet Train. It's not, Brad Pitt's role there feels like it's Ryan Reynolds, and this feels like a Ryan Reynolds movie.
Wait,
but
it's Ryan Gosling.
But it's Ryan. No, that's what I mean. But
What
it's
do you
like in Bullet Train, the whole joke is that it's like this is a Ryan Reynolds movie that Brad Pitt is filling in for.
Mm-hmm.
It's like meta, right? And then this movie also feels like The Fall Guy feels like it's a Ryan Reynolds movie.
Yeah.
But it's Ryan Gosling, and it's kind of like I think like I trust what he signs up to do now. Like if he does something, I'm like he's not going to be the issue. Like if there might be other issues, but like every movie I've seen him in that I can think of in recent memory, I don't have an issue with. Like maybe they're not my favorite movies, but I like them all. So
yeah, he's usually one of the better parts of every movie he's in.
like I'm trying to think like in the movie.
He's a scene stealer.
Yeah, so I think that's the reason why I'm probably more excited for that. And then Ballerina.
Oh, this is the John Wick spinoff.
I don't even know if it's actually going to come out, but we'll see. Ana de Armas. I mean, come on.
In terms of in terms of IP stuff, Joker 2. Yes, no, of course, we will be there.
We will be there, of course.
Alien Romulus, directed by Fede Alvarez. He did the 2013 Evil Dead and Don't Breathe.
Have to see what's good there. Yeah,
Always.
Yeah, I mean, it's
the
Alien.
guy who's got a fucking xenomorph on his arm.
Yeah, we will be there.
I'm
we have
xenophobic.
to.
You ever seen those motherfuckers?
Yeah, be like, you're not. No, but for real.
And then Deadpool 3. And the reason I ask is not because it's low hanging fruit and it will most likely be pretty bad, but the return of Hugh Jackman as Wolverine / Logan. That is a movie that we saw back in 2017 when it first came out, and we both really liked. I'm sure if you go back to 2017, that'd probably be in our top 10s, right? Logan?
Oh yeah, no, yeah, it's still
that and Blade Runner, I believe. So I'm not gonna act like it's like, wow, this really bugs me, but come on. It's like Michael Jordan coming back the second time.
Yeah, exactly. You can't do all that and then. Especially because I really like Logan. That's why
I still think Logan holds up as one of the better superhero movies. For me, it's like the Batman movies, Logan
yeah.
and then,
some of the X-Men.
Yeah, sure, whatever.
Yeah,
it
doesn't matter what it is.
Who cares after that? But
Infinity War, sure, go at it.
Different forms of like, man, that's pretty cool. Yeah, but no, the Batman movies and Logan are for sure like peak superhero movies to me.
The other movie I'm interested in, I don't even know how. Again, I think it's supposed to come out this year. Is because she got like everybody was like, boo, it's Chloe Zhao. She has a new movie coming out called Dracula, and it's a future sci-fi west. That's like the only premise I've seen. A future sci-fi western. I mean, that's literally right up the alley of stuff I like watching. So
it's dangerous territory because the movies that have been in this, well, sure, yeah. But I was going to say things like Prisoners of the Ghostland and what was the other one? Cowboys and Aliens. Like, these are things that cinematically, I would say, have never really worked.
Exactly.
But I think that she could pull this off because the worst part about Eternals is that it's painfully boring. The actual sci-fi aspects and the scope that she was going for is pretty big. So I don't know. I'm not cautious. I'm cautiously optimistic.
Well, like I have to see. Like I don't think there's pictures, trailers, or anything. So I was like,
What's
need to see.
What's the vibe here? Is it Renfield vibe or is it something more serious?
Or like, are we doing poor things?
What? Yeah, exactly.
Like,
is it Francis Ford Coppola's Dracula?
Exactly. Yeah, like are we going?
I can go for that.
Because in the credits, it does have Bram Stoker's Dracula as the reference. So
Yeah.
That's something like maybe it's trying to derive from the original story, and that's what he did.
Unlike the last voyage of Demeter, where they're like based on a famous vampire.
Yeah, exactly.
Who, the only vampire? What the fuck are you talking about?
And then one right, I guess I have to bring up because this isn't saying heard about it pretty recently is The Sympathizer, which is Park Chan-wook's next movie next
Let's
year.
go.
Which is he has a collab with Fernando Mireles, which is the director of City of God.
Let's go.
So they're both the directors on this. So what the hell is this? You know, and there's already
We will be there.
but that's like talk about we will be there. Like yeah, I need to see what that is. Aggro Drift.
You know what though? Also, maybe possibly next year will be like movie I didn't get to see that I really wanted.
Yeah, exactly. The idea was dropped in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So a lot of these that we're bringing up are like, oh, I don't know if they're rumored to come out this year. One thing's got to go wrong from what we know, right? And that's it. Problemista is probably one of the other ones because it's supposed to come out this year.
Was that indefinitely or like?
No, I've been seeing the trailer again, and it's coming out this next year. Coming like so.
Because the Bike Riders was indefinitely for a cool minute, you know?
Yeah, no, this one, it's for sure going to come out next year. So, obviously, a little bit of a bias there, but...
I mean, shaping up to be at least an interesting year, right?
Yeah, I think so.
And who knows with how much runtime we'll get on these movies with Marvel and DC and all of them barely putting anything out. We only have, like, Madam Web, Deadpool 3. I think Deadpool 3 is the only Marvel movie next year. DC, I think, I don't know if Creature Commandos, which is going to be the first movie in James Gunn's possible DC universe, could get scrapped before it ever even started, right? Who knows? If Paramount and Warner Brothers do fucking collab together on a monopoly, on monopolizing Hollywood even further, who knows what could happen, right? But superhero movies are down next year, like tremendously down, so... won't even have the chance to get mad or make fun of them or anything like that because there will barely be any. So who knows? Maybe these movies will play for longer amounts of time and go back to the way it used to be for a little bit. Nature will heal just a little bit, you know? You're like, oh, wow, that movie played for 2 months, which is like my mom finally got a chance to go see it because she sees movies 8 weeks after they come out, you know?
Yeah, seriously. We'll see. It'll be a nice natural test, I think.
Yeah, or like there's always a lot of foreign movies playing at the AMCs and stuff like that, so maybe more show times, you know? Anatomy of a Fall is a movie that was like 1 p.m. and 10 p.m. Like neither of those times work for me. What the fuck? Basically, they're like, unless you're unemployed, you can't come see this movie. Are you optimistic for the next year?
Yeah, I mean, especially, you know, we start talking about what to look forward to. I think there's always a lot to look forward to. And when you're positive, I mean, in retrospect, next year, ask me if all these movies I was excited for turned out to be good. Maybe half of them do, you know, but I think they have that premise. There's directors. They're coming up with second films that they're making. Yeah, like Rose Glass. And, you know, for Rose Glass specifically, it's like we saw a horror movie from her, and now it seems like a shifting tone. And it's like, that's the kind of stuff you love seeing from a director that's just like, look, let me try to show you what I could do. And it just looks maybe even better than what I think of Saint Maud. And I like that movie. So
I do too.
You know, those are stuff like I was looking right now just to cover base. Zach Krieger's coming out with the second movie. Like,
oh, and that one does sound really interesting.
Weapons, right? Like, yeah, like I just, there's certain people that I'm excited for, and they're getting a second movie. I didn't know that they're... And The Crow movie is coming out with Bill Skarsgård as the Crow.
That's cool, but why?
Why? Yeah. But
there was already another Crow movie, I believe. I don't think they've only made one. I mean, maybe fact check me on that, but
cursed ass movie.
Yeah, so we'll see. Who knows? I mean, so far, I would say, and I obviously don't know every single movie that's coming out in 2024. I'm like pretty excited. Oh, we didn't even really get to talk about Dune yet, but I think that is kind of like slot me in. It's probably going to be number one. You know, I'm not going to hide my bias here that I'm extremely excited for Dune, and I am expecting it to be my favorite movie of the year because it was that fucking good that my expectations are very high. I don't have low expectations for Denis Villeneuve or Dune, you know? I'm like, this is a major motion picture right here.
And so, I mean, when he's hyping it up to be better than the first one, you're like,
I'm wanting it to be one of my favorite movies I've ever seen. You know, this is
Star
my
Wars.
Empire Strikes Back.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it happened. You know,
Yeah, exactly.
the Lord of the Rings are cool, but that's not my Star Wars. You know, and Star Wars isn't my Star Wars either. So, and it's damn sure not Avatar: The Way of Water as much as I like that movie. You know, so I'm still in search of this is mine.
Oh, there's the movie too, Spaceman. I'm excited for that with Adam Sandler.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I'm not gonna say I'm excited, but yeah, let's see. Let's see. Why not, you know?
Madam Web, bro.
Yeah, no thanks. No thanks.
The new Godzilla movie.
Another
the
one?
Godzilla Kong.
Oh yeah, God.
The way they're running, bro.
They make them look like they're like 5 feet tall.
The Fortnite characters.
They're 4 naked. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but I'm excited, dude. You know, Francis Ford Coppola's disaster of a movie comes out too.
Oh yeah, that's next year. So there's some exciting names, I would say, but not as much as this year. This year just had a lot. Basically, every legendary filmmaker alive made a movie this year.
Yeah.
Ranging from pretty good to whatever. And I think it's time we talk about it. Are you ready to transition?
Yes, sir.
I want to let you lead here because your list is like a top 25. So you have a lot more honorable mentions than I do. Why don't you go ahead and take over here for a minute?
Okay, so I'm sure a lot of these you also have seen. They coincide, so there's opinions.
I'm going to go look at your list because Letterboxd will tell me how many of them I've seen.
It might even be episodes we've already done, so
Yes,
they won't be too long. I think I'll just kind of talk more about some of the ones that don't have episodes or just bring them up. Well, I did tell you that I was going to bring up for sure.
I saw 67% of your list this year.
There you go. Beckham, the Beckham doc. That's a bias. I always like watching. See, Netflix makes stuff like this that I think they're the best at making small series, limited series, where it's just kind of like a biography or behind the scenes. They get access to this footage and to things that, you know, a lot of the athletes give them. So they end up making a pretty unique biography. And I think it kind of, for those things, it's kind of hard for me to not just be like, this is great that you made this. And I think
the Arsenal.
So that's one, you know, and then in the beginning of the year was the Madrid one, which is
of course.
Legendary. So those are two sports ones. I think I wanted to bring up Beef and Copenhagen Cowboy as series 2. I do think Copenhagen Cowboy was Netflix as well. Like I said, they make those limited series really well. I think they still do that probably the best, and that's kind of where they got their name from. Nicholas Winding Refn is just kind of a vibes director. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't for me. It did in a long format. I just really like the subject matter here, kind of a little bit of John Wick there. Cool. Beef, I do think it's one of probably my favorite shows that I've ever seen. A24 does a good job of obviously taking a pretty simple premise and expanding on that and adding more of it gets humanity to the characters that are there. So, you know, that's worth bringing
What
up.
about The Curse? You mentioned The Curse as well to me.
The Curse, I need to watch the last episode.
But so far,
I mean, it's just Nathan Fielder lives in his own lane. And I think there's a lot of the premise of this show calls for a lot of interesting acting. And because I think he's Nathan Fielder, and this specifically is kind of standing out. And I think that's really interesting because his way of, you know, he's there with, obviously,
Emma
we're going to
Stone
talk about
and
it
Benny Safdie.
in poor things. Yeah, like we're going to talk about like Benny Safdie's and Oppenheimer. It's just that he's surrounded by people that are very good at their craft, and I still think there's scenes that he matches them. So I think ultimately maybe why I'm enjoying the series so much is it's a really crazy, like, you know, really awkward premise like all of his shows are, but it's really well acted. So highly would recommend watching The Curse if you're into quote unquote weird things. Test it out with something Nathan Fielder and see how awkward you think it is. You know, but I would really recommend it. So that's probably the cutoff for those. Those are the ones that I watched. I know there's other stuff that people seen also that are really good, but for me that's kind of the only series that caught my attention this year. So kind of back more to movies. Divinity.
this is the one I really wanted to see.
I might have brought this movie up earlier in the year. I don't remember, but I think we just kind of talked about it in what we saw that week. Just vibes heavy movie. I'm just appreciative that it got made. I could see why
experimental cinema.
Yeah,
Yes.
experimental. Very for the, just there's hot girls on here, just they're hot. Bella Thorne, the bodybuilders. But I do think it's the type of sci-fi niche for me, and I do actually like what it's saying about why it's using very physically beautiful people in the movie. I think that ends up being kind of a lot of where the commentary that you can make, or the artsy movies always making their connection to deeper concepts. So I just really thought it was a cool experience watching it, and I would rewatch. It's kind of the movie you would throw on. How people throw on music videos, just throw on Divinity on the TV because you're like, that looks cool.
Is this the kind of thing that will inspire people in 25 years
I think so.
if they unearth it somehow when it's for free on YouTube or something?
Yeah, I mean,
like that?
when you're you start the movie and it says produced by Steven Soderbergh, and you're like, I think that ends up speaking kind of like the thing that the older I get, I'm starting to realize, you see produced by sometimes, and you see certain names, and I'm like, they have their faith in this, because I think that's what it ultimately comes down to. Someone like Steven Soderbergh, who is a proven director, I'm gonna say some people would say one of the greats, but he kind of understands probably like this movie is something that could inspire somebody to make something really, really good, and I think that's why it's worth to watch.
Nice. Any more that you really want to bring up? I mean, I'm looking at your list, and some of them are movies that we had episodes on.
Or we're gonna they might end up being on higher in your list too. So it says like the only other one that I do think is close, which is in the beginning of the year, which is an A24 movie from Sweden or Finland, I forgot. That was really good, and it was really, I can compare it to Monster, which are two movies that have very, very similar premises about, children learning who they are and how the world probably won't accept that, and kind of dealing with not only these truths in around your family and stuff, but also being a kid during these thoughts. And I think that's obviously a very interesting concept. So those are movies that I would just recommend people to watch. I don't even know if I necessarily say they're like my favorite, but I just think they'll stand the test of time. And again, just kind of like a beautiful concept to approach, because it could go wrong. And I don't think I think these movies are all very sensitive and very good.
Sometimes we need that.
Yeah. I just think
that's why we come to this place, for magic.
And the other ones, that I know that like you saw that I think are worth bringing up. It's like 1001. That Teyana Taylor does a really good job, and I think we talked about that in our 100th episode.
Yeah, I really like that movie.
So that's one. And then everything else I think actually has an episode.
I think I want to bring these two up. I don't want to step on your toes, but I think that 12 is the good place to start, because these are two movies we haven't talked about, and they would be Radical and How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Let's start with Radical, because I have not seen that movie, but I do have some opinions about How to Blow Up a Pipeline.
Okay, so Radical, I think. It's just kind of get a little deeper, but I like Eugenio Derbez. Been watching him my whole life. He's a comedian, comedian skit before, just the opposite type of things. But again, similar. I think it's the only person that I could see where it's like Steve Carell, where they're so funny, and then you're like, that means he could probably do serious acting. And I think that was the only one that I've seen bleed into from Spanish TV that I'd watch into English, and now be an Oscar winner. And so I think he kind of has that respect now in Latin America. So that whenever something he signs up for now is usually he's the standout performance. But
his movies, he has obviously a market here. So there's a ton of people who will watch these movies, and I've been keeping tabs on him for a while, because my wife is just like you. She's been watching him her whole life, and I've noticed over the past 10 years, I'm like, one of his movies comes out like every year or so, every 2 years, and they're there, and then they're really popular on streaming, like on Prime or something like that. Like he carries,
Yeah, he carries.
He carries in a way that maybe not a lot of other actors do still.
And
that's because he has like a whole continents and Mexico and all these other places where it's like he's got a way bigger fan base than your average actor is gonna have.
Yeah, and it's like I think he bled into the market really well because there's obviously a lot of Latinos here, so it's like to be popular in America, you don't even have to. It doesn't even have to be in English.
No,
and it's I think he's able to tap, and like he was making stuff with like Anna Faris, and like very early on. So I think he did a good job to get his name out there, and then he did start doing. He speaks English well enough now to just be in English roles, and that's where I think he's just improved a lot in my whole lifetime, and it's one of the actors that I've seen like get older and get better. But okay, back to the movie Radical.
He's like if Adam Sandler was actually only making good movies. Right?
Yeah, like if he just kept stepping and like he just kept making like I'm gonna make the same movies that I was making, but now I approach it differently, right? And but back to Radical. I think Radical was in my top 10, and I just kind of keep moving it. But just love so many movies, but it's just a premise that I think for me might hit a little bit too close to home. Being somebody who's like first generation, I think I always think about that these stories could be who I was if my parents didn't decide to come here.
Yeah.
So this is obviously a based on a true story still happening. He's a teacher in a town that's very close to the border. I think it's right next to Texas. Very, very poor city in Mexico. And it's the worst school in Mexico, and he becomes a teacher there because he wants to help these kids. A premise and a story that we've seen various times, but I think because he's such a good actor here, and like what ends up happening, these are all based on real people. I just think it's very moving, very inspirational. A lot of the kid actors in this, I think, do end up standing out. I think there's a lot of subject matter that as a kid actor, I think is
this a lot of local actors, do you know?
Yeah.
I'm guessing, right? That's usually how these stories end up working.
And like, I think when you ask a kind of a kid to act these very real scenes of things that have happened that are obviously older than what the kid's thoughts should be thinking, a normal kid's thoughts, it's a real like demanding kind of like role, because it's kind of like, well, if you're not from that, a lot of times, if it's an actor, it is kind of versed more in arts. Mm-hmm. You didn't really grow up kind of struggling like that, so you do really have to kind of pull from that, or it's hard to pull that kind of inspiration. So this movie, I think, just is one of those films that really shows resiliency, and I think it's really funny in the same aspect that it's really, really sad. When I went to go see it at the movie theater, it was pretty packed, and that's always interesting. My parents are like been waiting to see when this movie hits streaming. I'm not sure when it will.
You know what it sounds like to me? A classic movie where you're like, I laughed, I cried.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Where it's like, this used to be a market where I was like, there's probably like 10 movies a year. You're like, oh, I laughed and I cried,
So
it used to be what people were demanding out of movies.
And I do think it again, because all the kid actors do a very good job here. It's just a standout performance from everybody who's on the screen, even the principal, and just the subject matter, and just kind of seeing at the end, similar to like a lot of the other movies this year, feel like, and stuff is still the same or whatever, and then you're kind of like, damn, okay. So it's stories that I think are worth telling too.
Yeah, nice. I'm gonna do my honorable mentions here because it's not a lot. It's just a few. I did see a lot of movies this year, not as many as you, but some of them we already talked about, so I didn't really feel the need to even bring them up again. But I will say, I watched The Creator recently. In the face of all of the criticisms, I don't care. Yes, there's bad writing. Yes, the story is cliche. John David Washington, I'm not sure if he's a good actor. I really don't know. But I love this movie. It's everything I want out of a sci-fi movie. We talked about this kind of earlier, but it's like, it feels like IP, but it's not, which I'm always like, isn't that kind of a good middle ground? Yeah. Because you're like, God, I wish Star Wars was like how Star Wars used to be. And then the creator is like, I could try to be like that. And then isn't that like better than just like, oh, I have to watch Ahsoka, Like, I'm sure people really like Ahsoka, but I don't mind the inspiration, Like, sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad. I guess it's just depending, but I crave good sci-fi movies with like big scope and scale, and I crave this is my Star Wars. You know, I really would love to have that one day. Blade Runner 2049 was one of those moments, you know, but as much as I love Avatar: The Way of Water, and I think it's like of that quality, it's not my Star Wars, you know? So I'm still looking for that. And the creator is definitely not it, but I really love the attempt. Finally, Rogue 2, right? Mans needs to create a good movie, right? And it's like, yes, the things that he's ripping off, they're all things I really like. So there is just a total bias here. I'm not here to defend the movie, but I'm here to just tell you, like, this, I'm the guy that they made the movie for, you know? Like, I'm sorry to tell you, like, I'm that guy. Yeah, yummy, yummy, you know? Like,
I'm like, look at the tools.
Yeah. Oh, sick. Rip off R2D2.
Yeah. Oh, sick. No, yeah. I did enjoy that movie a lot. I was luckily able to see that one on IMAX, and it's like that's the type of movie that is just like, oh my God. And I felt like it's one of those. I think it was interesting one time you brought up like a movie I really like that I can see its issues with, and I just like it. It's a sci-fi bias. Same thing. Like, I don't know, man. Like Thanksgiving.
I could watch this movie on silent because it's so beautiful. Yeah, it's one of my favorite sci-fi imagery I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's just straight up like the truth. I do think that the way that it's shot. Yeah, Greg Fraser, I believe, also shot this. It looks like everything I love in the Batman and Rogue One, and it's like I have no problems with Rogue One's visuals. Yeah, you know, so it's like I think it's and the score. I remember the score worked really well for me as well.
Yes,
I thought the story, like you said, cliche. I got sad.
Okay, thing, you know, you just talked about with radical personal attachments to things, right? Because it's like, oh, it's telling a story that hits close to home for me. I'm a sci-fi nerd who's a dad, but bro, of course this movie's going to get me. You know what I mean? Like, not to do spoilers here, but it's like once the plot reveals itself, you're like, oh, right? You're like, it got me. You're like, yeah, yes. I would do the same thing.
Yeah, so
maybe have cooler lines when I did it, but you know, like I would maybe think about what I was gonna say before I said it. You know, but yeah, this movie's got some awful dialogue. It's me. I'm undercover. You're blowing it. You know, like where are your robot buddies? Like there's just so much garbage. Like he needed someone else, just even a half decent writer to come through and like just okay, we'll keep all these ideas, but I don't know. Let's maybe make it sound good. Like, all right, let's do that, but good, you know? Like, that's how it felt.
And he has you start to talk about David Washington, like, he has the physical presence, like, of being there, you know? It's when he opens his mouth, you're like, ah.
Tenet is also cool with the sound off, I'll say.
Like, so.
It's weird because Black Klansman is so good, you know?
I do like that you brought it up, the creator. It is. I do think it got lost for me. And again, in a year of a lot of good movies, last year, I think it probably would have been in my top 12, though, too. This is an honorable mention for you?
Yes. You know, I don't think that it's exactly David Lynch's Dune, you know? Like, I think it's something more than that, where it's like, no, I think that someone will see this and take something from this.
It has rewatchability.
I think, too, there was an article, I forget exactly who wrote it, but it was like, it could change the future of small budget sci-fi.
I remember the article, yeah.
What you can do with $15 million. You can make a movie that looks better than what Star Wars is pumping
out.
Why
the creator will change cinema. I've seen that.
I think yes. I just think this movie has great consequences could come from the making of this movie.
Yeah, I do think in a couple of years later down the line, you know, as somebody who loves Blade Runner, his lines delivery in that movie isn't great either. You know,
in the original Blade Runner?
Yeah.
Or like the movie had to be chopped together 8 times to be a masterpiece.
Like, Harrison Ford isn't exactly the best. I love him in that movie. And I think that's the bias for me. Somebody doesn't like the movie, they're like, he's not that interesting of a character. I think that's like that. What the role is in the movie, as understanding it for what it is, I think that, but that's what the role calls for. But I could understand why somebody could feel the same way John David Washington acts in that movie. And I'm like, look, to me, that movie is a lot like my favorite movie now. So that's I'm like, I'm not opposed to it. He also doesn't have a long enough
track record to be defendable, you know, where it's like, no, but what about this? And he's never done anything iconic, you know, and like that will always be the difference between the John David Washingtons, the Emerald Fennells, the whoever is like, yeah, but you didn't do this first. You know, you didn't make Halloween. You didn't make The Thing. So no, if you do some hack shit that on Arrival, be like, you're not going to be regarded like, no, but you have to give John Carpenter a chance. You know, like, no, you didn't earn the chance first, you know? So it's like with Black Klansman is why I'm like, okay, I think he's good, right? Like, he's the interesting one. It's like, I think that he's good. But then you watch Tenet, and then you watch this movie, and you're like, I don't know, because Tenet and The Creator should be my two favorite movies. And he's in both of them, you know?
I guess, yeah.
If Daniel Kaluuya was in The Creator, do you think that it would be a better movie? Or does he not give you the vibe of, like, this action guy?
No, no. I don't think, just because he doesn't look like, I don't think, I guess. It could work, but I was like, it didn't work in
stoic Western type. He could be a cowboy more than he could be
what's funny
guy.
About both those, like you brought up, like they both have Oscars.
Yeah.
Like, so they, like, in everybody's eyes, they have earned to do whatever the fuck it is that they want, and that's why they get away with it. Like, that's funny because, like, they did in their first hack at something, or first crack at something, they got like the highest achievement. So then they're like, oh well, yeah, everything now kind of falls in place because of that. And it's not like with his movies, it's not like they've been like, people really like Tenet too, you know. So
he might be one of those guys in the future where it's like these movies are great in spite of him, kind of, you know, where it's like maybe is not great, but he's also not destroying the movie. But because it's subjective, some people are always going to be like, he's the worst part of the movie, you know? That the creator had somebody else who could make this dialogue sound better, or an actor who maybe is more seasoned, it would punch it up on their own of like, okay, I get what you want me to do, but like, let me do the acting. I'm going to sell this, you know? Like, he doesn't sell anything. That's the problem. I never believe what he's actually saying.
it could have been
this next game is called Don't Get Joshua Killed by the Fucking Police.
It could have been Winston Duke.
Oh, sick.
Yeah, because he's huge.
Big old fucking.
Yeah, exactly.
Dude, he should be Marcus Phoenix, and if they make the Gears of War movie, huh?
Yeah. Seriously. No, but like, yeah, he's a good actor. I like him too. But I still look forward to the movies he's in. I'm there for the acting. I'm there for the Denzel One Note remix.
I'm also, you know, I'm here for the crazy sci-fi bullshit of like, what if there was a fucking robot Jesus? You know, I'm like, yes, that's cool as fuck. So
why not?
Yeah, you got me. All right. So I really like The Creator, and then I think I will still bring up once again, even though we did the episode on it, because I still think it's that damn good, is When Evil Lurks. That was my favorite horror movie of the year. And what would a list be without a horror movie on it, right? So I won't say too much, but When Evil Lurks, my favorite horror movie of 2023. And that's why it's an honorable mention.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was thinking about the fact that this movie, I liked it so much and it's lower on the list, and then it has no...
As great as this year was, the fact that a horror movie is not in one of my top 10 lists is always kind of like, well, so was it really a great year because there was no masterpiece horror movie? Which a lot of people would say, there never is, but boo to you, sir. Boo to you.
So I think before we crack into it, because you said that was your last, I have one more honorable mention, because, and then it'll be our top 10, and it is How to Blow Up a Pipeline.
I like this movie.
Which was a movie that was in my like number 6 at one year, or at one point, or like 5. I just think I love pressure cooker movies. I think that's always like a thing that's really hard to get down. This movie knows its runtime 104 minutes. It just starts off like literally with a boom, you know. I think this kind of is what I was talking about before. This is a movie that something like Don't Look Up is trying to tell us something, and it does it in a let's have fun. This movie doesn't, like, let's not have fun. Let me show you why shit's fucked, and let me show you why. I think this director understands its timeline that we're at, and like when they talk about, there was a lot of movies that were talking about this movie gets it the best.
There is not many American movies like this.
Exactly.
There could maybe in other countries, but I don't live in other countries, so I don't know. But a political movie with this strong of a message is very, very rare.
And like, for, you know,
that alone is worth bringing up.
The title on itself caused so much, you know, obviously you even scared to maybe Google the fucking movie.
No, thank you.
And it's very, very political what it's saying, but I do think the movie also approaches that political backgrounds don't matter when ultimately this stuff is affecting every side.
Yeah.
So I do think it just does that at a marvelous.
It's a political movie, but its point is that like that doesn't matter.
And it's because
it's us versus the evil corporations that are destroying the earth.
And I just think that like that's a fucking message that needs to be told, and this movie does it in the best way that I've seen so far.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't know if this is out of turn, but it's like this is a movie that people should see because it's like, yeah, you need to see shit like this so that you can like wake up. You know what I mean?
This to me is just important. Like this is using the medium of making a good fucking movie and knowing how much effect that has. Obviously, this is a Neon movie, not like a big budget movie, but I think it has enough of a...
Didn't need to be almost a perfect movie.
Yeah. So this movie, and nothing wrong with it. I really like this movie.
I guess this is criticism, but is it really? But the only thing I guess why it's not a perfect movie to me is because it's like for 1 second I did not think that the spoilers, the pipeline would not blow up, so there was really no drama in all of this. It was pure tension, pure cinema. There was no actual like moment where I thought maybe they're gonna get caught, maybe whatever, like what is gonna be the story after this. So it was just like it was like more of an exercise to me than like I don't know, like an interesting narrative. It was like how to make the perfect pressure cooker movie, and then it's like this. And then the ending is like once it does happen, okay, movie's over. We did the thing we told you we were gonna do. The movie's over.
It knows its runtime.
And it's like that's fine because it's like, yes, give me more. So it's like, is that really a criticism that I got mad it was over? It's like, no, I don't think so.
No, I think
I thought it was definitely a movie worth checking out.
Yeah, so that'd be the end of my...
It's a very cool, like, they don't make movies like this. And not anymore, but I don't know if they really ever did.
No, yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
But so that's a movie that I think, I go watch it.
All right, nice. My top 10, starting here, we'll go one right after another.
Okay.
If we're stepping on each other's toes, because I know we're going to have some overlap here. If you want to just save it for when it gets to you, you can do that. But I think we'll still have enough to say about these movies. So my number 10 of the year was Sanctuary. We talked about this movie in depth. I've only seen it the one time. I keep flirting with it on Hulu. My finger hovers over it. I'm like, it's tonight. And it hasn't been, but fun movie, great acting, sharp, witty, funny, interesting, just like all of those wrapped into one. And I wish they made more movies like that. It's just two actors who are young with I have a lot of optimism for that they will be big movie stars one day in cool movies. Yeah, I just like sick. Yeah, put two actors in a room and let them cook. Like, and they did.
I mean, this was my number 8, but this did get its own episode, so I don't feel like it needs to, be discussed too much. But what I did find really interesting about this is they both are in another movie higher in my list.
Yes,
which is just that doesn't happen usually. But I really like this movie. I think this film stands for me. Test of time. I've watched this one 3 times. I just, like you said, it's just a fun movie for me. I think it really shows two actors that are pretty new, not new enough, seasoned. They've been in all good stuff enough to really show off why I think they're really good. Kind of think just proves whatever discussion you could have your head on. Like, this is why I like these two so much. I thought it was very well shot.
Seeking out movies like this as well. The fact that they're seeking, I want to be in a movie like this. Yes, more of this.
The subject matter calls for really good blocking, which I think the movie does really well. A lot of power positions and stuff like that. This is
how you shoot a movie in one room.
Yeah.
Right, or one setting.
And this one, I think maybe the bias was like I was lucky enough to hear her talk about it, hear the director talk about it, and it's a movie that I ended up just really loving. So yeah, I agree with you. This is still one of my favorite movies of the year.
Your number 10, Alvaro.
So my number 10 is, which is interesting, as I watched this probably a while back, is Rye Lane, which is a movie on Hulu. Never thinking maybe that it would even stick around this long, but I did end up putting this on my top 10 because I obviously have a bias, I think, for rom-coms. Mm-hmm. But I think there is a lot of really, really great rom-coms, and this is on Hulu, shot by, I think, a British director, if I'm
It's a British movie. I do know that. That's the only thing I know about this movie, actually.
I found it really, really when there's a movie that is a rom-com, you're like, what are you going to do differently? First, I think that it's the fact that it is British, and so then you have a modern story. But I just think this is shot insane, which is not what you would expect. I think this is really inspired filmmaking. The editing here is insane. It's a very short movie. I think, it's only 82 minutes, which it knows its runtime. It's a story. It gets to the point. I just really, the editing here stood out to me so much when I watched it that I couldn't stop thinking about it. And I think it's funny because it's very easily accessible, but it's not a movie that really got too much hype. But I just think
I didn't know it was on Hulu, and I'm on Hulu every day looking for movies to watch. So
yeah, like this movie came out on Hulu.
Yeah.
Very like under the radar, but I just had so much fun with this one. I thought it was really funny. I think it has a unique perspective when you do have Black British leads. That calls for a whole other type of dating scene that I obviously know nothing about. So maybe that was a little bit of the bias that worked for me, but I just love that it knew what it was doing. 80-minute runtime, and that the 80-minute runtime is used for really good cinematography and really great editing. And I just think, wow.
I haven't seen it,
cool.
but it sounds like what I want out of movies, which is like, sure, you might not be the most original movie in the world, or it's not a concept like something like a rom-com. It's like been there, done that a million times, but then it's like, all right, well, let's have fun with this. Let's introduce new camera angles. Oh, we've never done this in a rom-com, so let's do this kind of shot. It's like, yes, do that. If you're going to make a movie that is, not to say that this movie is, but like a ripoff or not very original, it's like, so do something interesting, like how do you creativity really at the end of the day is like putting two things together that shouldn't be together, right? So it's like, okay, here's this rom-com, all right, I'm gonna shoot it this way, and that's why it's interesting and good and worth existing.
And I mean, because it's funny because you brought up Sanctuary, and they're both, I like them for the same reason. And I just inch for Sanctuary a little more because it's longer, and I also enjoy I know the actors, but it's
and you're more sleazy at heart.
Yeah, but it basically is the same type of approach at a rom-com that I'm always like, I know I have that bias with like Before Sunrise and In the Mood for Love and 2046. So it's kind of like, well, these movies are the type of movies that I like, and I just like now when a modern person has a take on them. And again, like, for me, you're always going to get me if it's cinematography and editing, because I'm like, you're using your medium to the full extent.
Alvaro, big romance guy. Who could have seen that coming? I guess
so. And then like every time I see my top 10, I'm like, oh, there's a lot here.
This guy loves love.
That is good.
Because the other ones you mentioned, like some of them are not, they're just romances. They're definitely not rom-coms, like In the Mood for Love and 2046 and stuff like that, But guy loves love, obviously.
Yeah, exactly.
Gay.
Exactly.
So that's your 10?
10 was where I landed.
Okay, my number 9, Godzilla -1. This is what a monster movie could be. This is what monster movies should be. If you're gonna do a monster movie, it's like, give this thing some damn heart. It's like that's what people are missing in the movies nowadays, is some sense of sincerity, and not just fucking Godzilla looking like he's a 2-foot action figure running next to King Kong. It's like, it's nice to have it all, but this is what Godzilla was intended to be originally anyways, It's like, we're going back to the original. Like, when a movie says it's paying homage, I never believe them. It's like, that's just them saying like, oh, I wanted to make this movie again, Like, I never buy it. That they're like, these are the pure intentions. But like something like Godzilla -1, it does feel like, yes, I want to go back to that original feeling from the first one. And I think, because I've seen the first one a few times, this one is better than the original one. The original one is more from the science perspective of the whole thing. It's like the military and the science, and they're trying to track down Godzilla. What is he? Because it is his origin. And in this one, you're kind of already put into a world where like Godzilla is a urban legend already. So you kind of skip all that and you get down to this character study about a man with survivor's guilt, remorse, loss. Godzilla personally hates him. That is the interesting part of this movie, or at least it feels that way. Like Godzilla is the literal symbol of his remorse for surviving through World War II, right? And it's just a great fucking movie. I don't think we really talked about it much last time, but or I don't know if I had even seen it by the last episode. It's been so long. Took a few weeks off. Sorry about that, folks. But yeah, Godzilla -1, just like, fuck yeah. Hell yeah. Guys will see this movie and be like, hell yeah. True.
I think the reason why it works very well and why the other ones don't work anymore, I think Godzilla, the original one, coming after, always having a commentary on World War II, and obviously after being dropped the bomb, which is, again, this reminds me, this is the great double feature with Oppenheimer.
The father of Godzilla.
But I think why this works, or maybe even be an improvement, obviously, on something that is, I'm going to say, aged, right?
Whoa.
Controversial. But you kind of brought up how the monster seems like he has a personal vendetta on him, but the call to action always means a lot more, like it does in Jaws, when the people don't have anything. When you have the U.S. military at your disposal to kill Godzilla, now you're just showing off that it's this amazing fucking monster. But the humanity isn't there, because you're like, okay, like, you know, it's the girl from Stranger Things, right? And the one that's going on now.
Yeah, and, you know, she's got a psychic link with one of them and whatever.
And it's like, you're asking me, like, you know, the kid who has the TikTok and everything, like, hit their problems now because of the monster, as opposed to somebody who has nothing and there's no resources, there's no technology, there's very primitive things. And a lot, as somebody who has nothing, you take from them, as like, that really is going to build somebody with resiliency. And I think that's something that the monster movies, like you said, don't always get right anymore, because now we're making the 5th, the 6th, the 7th. But like the first works because, or something like this.
Monster movies now are just action figure movies.
Exactly.
Wow, smash. Wouldn't it be cool if this guy smashed this guy?
Yeah.
I'd be like, oh, yeah, it was once. It was cool once. Like, but we're doing this over and over again, and it's so obviously just trying to be like Marvel, which is like, okay, yes, I do like this stuff, so I'm kind of being a little biased towards it, but I gotta say, the MonsterVerse, like,
you take it
at
or
no
leave
point
it,
is any of it better than like low tier MCU.
Yeah, take it or leave it.
Really? I mean, that's how I feel about it.
So, yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed this movie. I do think came out of nowhere. We saw this one in Dolby, and I think that was a really great experience. Yeah, I didn't, when I seen this showing, I'm not really the biggest, I guess, Godzilla fan, but this is my favorite.
Is this
Godzilla
Kong
movie.
propaganda?
Yeah, no. I was like, I haven't seen, like, you know, I don't think I've ever seen Peter Jackson's King Kong
It's
either.
3 hours long. It's a pretty crazy movie.
So I'm just like, I'm not as much of the little kid that liked the big monsters.
You're not a Kong head?
Yeah, or a big monster head. So
yeah, I mean, I wasn't.
But it was really good. I really
wanted
enjoyed
to be
this
when I
movie.
was a kid, because I saw Peter Jackson's King Kong and I saw the Roland Emmerich Godzilla where he looks like a T-Rex.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so like when I was a kid, I wanted it. And took me to be damn near 30 years old to finally get the thing I was looking for.
just like, oh, look, Pacific Rim. Like, that's the, like, you know what I mean?
Yes, peak
So
monsters.
that's what I mean. It's
Peak monster bullshit, you know? Like, but Godzilla, hey, this is saying something.
Yeah.
About the human condition.
yeah, this, like,
you
this
know?
movie,
Like,
yeah.
it's really about a human still at the end of the day.
Nailed
And
it
it's
down,
like,
yeah.
I know I talked about with Planet of the Apes, it's like I like seeing these movies where they are non-human involved for the most part, but the MonsterVerse gets that totally wrong, because it's like they have no personality. It's just like, I'm the alpha. No, I'm the alpha. And they're just fighting, you know? It's just, and then humans being in awe of them. That's the only reason they are there, because they actually don't have the balls to make a movie that doesn't have any humans in it. So it's like, let's just make them cardboard cutouts. Hey, Brian Tyree Henry, he's pretty popular. Millie Bobby Brown, sure, why not? It's just dumb. Kyle, you know, those movies are just so bad.
Just no resonance. It just, like, sure works for a show. Like, I'll watch it, but then it's like I said, but that's it. I don't even remember watching it.
I feel the same way about the MonsterVerse movies as I do about like the Mortal Kombat movie. Like,
Like,
that's
yeah,
pretty
sure.
bad. Like, but I do like Mortal Kombat, I guess. And I don't know. Do I? You know, these kind of things make me question if I even like it, you know?
Yeah.
Do I want to be associated with this?
But
right?
good movie.
Yeah, so that was my number 9.
My number 9 has been pretty. There's a Netflix movie, but it's May December.
Popular movie.
Yeah, very popular movie. I
Probably
think
not a good movie to be popular because of its subject matter.
deservedly so. I do think, like I said, I think I brought it up in the 100th episode. This one, just Todd Haynes is kind of in my head. It's kind of funny. He's like the spectrum opposite of Zack Snyder in terms of like everything this guy writes is where it lies, like where the story lies, where the undertones lie. Like his writing is complex enough where he's saying stuff that's not being, it's not what it's actually being said. And then also the way that he shoots things, they just pair each other really well. I thought this movie had a really interesting concept, and I think as somebody who watches a lot of movies and really likes top tier actors, has almost a commentary on that on its own. So I really like the insane meta-ness to this movie, but also that it has nothing to do with the subject matter, and that I like that the movie like this could call out of, you know, again, I think this was interesting that it happens here too, that you have Natalie Portman and Julianne Moore, but it's Charles Melton who almost feels like is up there with them, the same way that I was talking about Nathan Fielder. And it's these seasoned actors and directors trusting that this role is supposed to have a standout in it and knowing who to cast. And I think that's when you kind of really show that this director is very aware of what he's doing. And this movie just seems very controlled and very funny as well. And I think because I've seen the movie Safe, and I really, really enjoy that movie. So it seems like it's a very meticulous director that I've really come to enjoy. And I feel like May, December, even in the discussions that I've seen, seem to kind of focus on the funnier stuff that's in it. But I was just kind of blown away by some of the shots in here, and the way he's very well at, you know, saying his story, again, in a cinematic way, and enhancing his writing with the cinematic.
Nice. I haven't seen this movie yet. Just Netflix bullshit, you know.
Yeah.
Don't have Netflix at the moment. I was able to watch The Killer, and then my Netflix account took a shit again. I was like, hey, this ain't The Home. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I got in. I'm in. You know, I watched The Killer, and then my Netflix account got zapped again. It was like, nope. So I don't know. My sister has it figured out. I don't know. I guess she claimed it, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
But I have not seen May, December. From what I can tell, everybody was losing their fucking minds on Film Twitter and Letterboxd. It's one of those movies that it seems like, because it is a touchy subject of a 90s social pariah,
Wow.
you know, it got kind of like, not exactly, but it's like Jerry Springer type vibes of, like, you know, me and my 12-year-old boyfriend, you know. So it's not something that most people are ready for, let alone people on the internet, you know, where nowadays everything is like a therapy / HR meeting. This is too messy for most people now.
Yeah.
So I'm not surprised that people are losing their fucking minds because they have no nuance nowadays on how to, oh my God, is the movie saying that they're a good person? Like, I don't know. Probably not. You know, why does the director have to tell you that? Shouldn't you decide for yourself? Anyways, that's another subject.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the vibe I've gotten from this movie. So it's like, I want to see it because I like these actors. I'm excited to see Charles Melton and get an introductory to the young man because I've never seen any of his work before. Yeah, I don't know. Chill out, people, right? It's probably not that crazy.
I just think like if that's what you kind of take about like it being crazy, is you do kind of, this does kind of seem like you're missing kind of the whole point of Natalie Portman's character in this. And I think that's where it's like sometimes these discussions are what prompt something like Safe, and they stand the test of time. So, you know, I'm watching Safe. That's Julianne Moore's like breakout debut with Todd Haynes, and it's such a good movie. And it's talking about environmental, it's kind of the same way, you know, of How to Blow Up a Pipeline.
Yeah.
And it's saying it in a very different way that you're just like, I really appreciate your outlook or this director's brain and how they're able to portray their thoughts. And I think this movie is the same exact thing. And there's like sometimes when something is on Netflix and a certain amount of people have access to it that aren't used to watching movies that don't directly tell you this is good and this is bad.
Yeah.
They take just what's happening at face value. And I'm like, but the movie is telling you that these things are, life isn't like a movie, you know what I mean? So it's like, this is just a real portrayal, and I think it's a really thought out depiction of the human condition.
I'm also not surprised because it comes from the content house that too many people probably got access to this movie too early, you know? So
Yeah,
the
exactly.
conversation is so many normies being like, oh, look, Natalie Portman, I'm going to watch the movie she's in.
It's the killer.
Oh, this guy from Riverdale.
Yeah.
And then you're like, what the fuck is this? You know? So
Exactly.
not to gatekeep because I don't want to do that, but I'm just saying a subject matter like this is not necessarily made for everyone, you know, and Netflix is made for everybody. So.
Yeah, that's how I like. You know, it's like it's when White Noise came out, bro. Like you're
What the
asking,
fuck
like,
this?
what
This
is
the
this?
last movie I'm gonna watch this year?
Yeah,
Yeah.
And you're asking this of somebody, and it's like for me, it is interesting that they make those decisions. So that's like I said, like just give it to Apple, because I think like when somebody watches an Apple movie, they're not under the Netflix thought of like they make these, and it's not their fault because like I said, they made Beast of No Nation. They've let Martin
Roma,
they've
you
let
know,
Martin cook.
The Irishman.
You know, it's like it's not their fault, but I just think people see everything as content when it's on there, and they take different things. But it is interesting to me that even if you do take it at face value, like some people have, it still is popular. You know, like it still has that for you because it is funny. I do think it's a funny movie.
All right, so I haven't seen this one yet, so we'll move off of it. I will say from this point on, most of these movies could be my number one at any given time. And I do think that these are the 8 movies that I would take going forward. If I had to leave back the rest, these are the 8 that I'm like, we have to have these. And they are the conversation and the important pieces of movies for going forward.
This is my award circuit, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. So if some of these seem low compared to Alvaro, it's not really 1 and 8. They are pretty close. I'll just say that. And number 8 is Yorgos Lanthimos' Poor Things. I really fucking like this movie. The more time that I've sat with it, I think it's a masterpiece. When I first walked out, I was like, oh, okay, pretty good. Cooked. I do think it's a little heavy-handed on the message of the movie, but such is life, you know. It's not like I don't really think of it as a feminist movie like some people have said, and that's just because I'm like, at the end of the day, can a man really make a feminist movie? I think they can want to do that, but I don't know if a man. Is it feminist for a man to make a feminist movie? Like, do you get what I'm saying here? It's like a chicken and the egg scenario. It's like, it's cool that he did that, but he's still a guy, you know? So when a young woman with a baby's brain is discovering life and the natural instinct is sex first and to become a whore to empower yourself in a world of men wanting to hold you down, I'm like, it sounds like something a guy would say, you know? But still, a dude masterpiece about women, I guess. Yeah, I don't know. I really like every aspect of this movie. Emma Stone solidifying herself as probably one of the best working actors. I mean, not that she hasn't done that already, but for me at least, I'm like, all right, she's setting a bar. Let's see what everybody else is going to do.
Yeah, no, I do have this one a little higher than you, like you said.
I'd like to do a whole episode on this movie, just saying.
So, yeah, I'll probably talk about it a little more. And
so if you want to do your number 8.
My number 8 is Sanctuary, so this is interesting. So, I mean, we've already kind of raved about it, so I think we could go for your 7 already, just because I've already kind of talked about it. Yeah.
That will be Hayao Miyazaki's The Boy and the Heron. I saw this movie 2 days ago. At this point, it's the last movie I'll probably see of 2023 in the theater, and I thought it was phenomenal. I think that it subverted some people's expectations because it is not very narrative driven. It's very dreamlike. I don't know if I would maybe give this a pass in other movies, but sure, it could be a bias. There's things about the movie where I'm like, did that happen? Like, or how did it happen? You know, like the movie did feel like a dream. And I think it's because of the pacing and the time that you spend in these different realities and worlds and the overall message of the movie of like some of my favorite themes. It's like acceptance, grief, how we use creativity and like what it does to us, and like are bad people or people with malice worthy of creating things for people, you know? It's like, it's also got this weird message like kind of coded in there, because I don't know if you know this, there's some Miyazaki lore that he hates that his son makes movies, and he also thinks his son is garbo at making movies.
Damn.
So that there's this like slight message in the movie where it's like the older character is telling the younger ancestor, he's like, I don't want you to do this, you know? So they're like, is this him telling his son, like in the movie, like, stop making movies, you know?
God dang.
So yeah, I mean, this is not the most sensitive man for a man who's made a lot of movies about children and the struggles that they go through. He's not exactly the nicest guy, you know. He's kind of known for having like that tough exterior and like life is pain, you know. Like,
Do you
and
think?
it's cool that he makes kids movies too.
Do you think he's gotten better?
Yes and no, because some of the early ones, like, well, his pre-Studio Ghibli stuff, it's just like movies like Sherlock Holmes but dogs.
Okay,
You know,
yeah.
so it's like, okay, just cartoons, you know, like anything.
So obviously he got better. From
So I
there.
do think once Studio Ghibli started, from Nausicaa all the way to now, I think that he has definitely grown from like, I'm going to make these kids stories that have messages about like environmentalism and nature versus like, you know, because he grew up in World War II and stuff like that, like men and humans destroying the world versus like the natural balance of things. Like, I've just always liked the themes of his movies because he respects children enough to like, I'm gonna do something that you might not understand, but that it's important that you hear these things more than just you're a princess and a guy will save you or everything is good at the end of the day. Like, a lot of his movies, they're not good at the end of the day, you know, or they're extremely violent too, like Princess Mononoke. So I think that he treats kids movies with respect. It's like, they're not fucking dumb goo goo gaga baby shark brain, you know, like maybe they're not ready for this yet, but maybe that's a good thing too. You know, it's like, these are things that your kids should know about the world. So I think he's a vital filmmaker in that aspect because he does something that maybe not a lot of other people are doing. I saw this movie in Japanese, but I will say I missed out on the Robert Pattinson thing, but the Japanese voice actor is basically doing the same exact thing. So Robert Pattinson's, my excitement for that is like, I'll catch that when I watch it at home, but I saw it in Japanese and I always think it's better because I will say, I think maybe it's just a cultural difference. It's like, there's a certain sense of optimism that the Japanese have, or maybe I'm misspeaking here, but at least it feels that way as opposed to like American dialogue. And I do think that when it's delivered by an American voice actor, it sounds so cheesy sometimes. It's like, it needs to be said the way it was written for me to get that emotional effect, you know? Like, that's more important than actually like, oh, I understand because it's in English, you know?
I get you. I mean, it's for these movies. It's a option that is made available. They don't go, do you want to watch Parasite in English?
Yes, exactly. You know, we're like, we're watching Squid Game in English. Like,
Yeah,
what the fuck is wrong
yeah,
with you?
yeah, exactly.
I don't understand why animation is the one form of the medium where you're like, it doesn't matter, just watch it in any language.
Whatever way, yeah.
But it's like, why? That's not how it was intended to be watched.
Yeah,
That's a whole other conversation, obviously, about people choosing to read or not read, but it's pretty.
But
dumb at the
animation
end of
is the one that gets the option, you know,
and
because
it's
they're
because
like,
it's for kids, right?
and well, I don't know if that's like, I don't know when it's like a Studio Ghibli movie like this. I don't know what I mean, is The Boy and the Heron still a kids movie? Is it considered a kids movie?
My wife, because she really liked this movie too, and she was like, "That." I was like, "That's a kids movie." She's like, "Really?" She's
Yeah,
like,
so
"Because
that's like,
these
I don't-
themes are like really intense for like maybe it's a kids movie, but not like a 6 to 5 year old.
It's like a 10 to
It's
11.
like a 10 to 11, yeah,
or like
12.
9, 11.
Yeah.
Because, well, that's my thing. Because, like, with him, it's like, maybe it's because he's, like, everybody knows now that he's not making them for little kids. So maybe he's not preoccupied with that. But it's kind of like, it's interesting to me that they still offer his movies. Like, maybe because that's the draw. That's how they're like Disney, right?
Hey,
Obviously.
The Wind Rises is like Oppenheimer before Oppenheimer. It's like the animated Oppenheimer, you
Yeah.
know? So it's like he has been, and these are also supposedly his last movies. Like he said that with The Wind Rises and he said that with this movie, but he definitely feels like, oh, okay, I'm getting towards the end of telling these stories. So kind of like with Scorsese, it's like, I want to tell the stories now that I actually think are important. And like, it's really personal. So was The Wind Rises. And they're more personal than most of his movies have been. Most of them are just like, you know, stories for kids to like, that are vital, learn like lessons to be learned, you know, but these last two are very good. I'll just give you a quick synopsis, but so it's the boy Mahito and he lives in Japan. And then there's like, it's during World War II. There's a big fire. His mom dies. So he's going through all of that, right? His father moves them to the countryside. This is all mirroring Hayao Miyazaki's life. Like, obviously not the exact details, but he lived in Tokyo, or he lived in the city, moved to the countryside. His father worked for an aviation company building the planes during World War II. And then his the father marries the younger sister of the original wife. and they move to this place and they find this tower that is like enchanted or whatever, and it takes them to all these different worlds that he goes to, and you know the story goes from there, and then it just becomes this dreamlike structure fairy tale of, you know, story about loss and grief and moving forward and creativity. So it's just like things I really like, you know. So I was like, okay, hell yeah. I've seen a lot of people say it's kind of mid, which is like, I don't disagree, but for me, could just be personal bias, but I really fucking liked it. And I don't think all of his movies are 5s either. So that's the other thing. It's like, I like some of them significantly less. So I don't think I'm just riding here. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was a pretty popular movie, personally.
My theater was pretty full.
I thought most people really liked it. So
yeah. So that was my 7.
So my 7 is a movie that I would probably argue in complete, like, unbiased or like just trying to be very subjective. It's probably the second best movie, but it's not like my second favorite movie, but it's a movie that I think is very well is Anatomy of a Fall.
This is my 5. Go ahead though. Cook.
Anatomy of a Fall. I mean,
don't cook too hard though, because I would like to maybe do an episode
on yeah, exactly. So this is the third year we would be able to discuss the Palme d'Or winner.
We just have to then, right? I mean, we have to do it.
We did last year with Triangle of Sadness, which I think, you know, I seem to like that movie more than most people, but
you have Criterion on your side.
Was way different than like Titan, right? But I think we talked about earlier in the year that TV shows in America about judges and stuff like that, some of the most popular stuff, Law and Order, all of those things that have a lot to do with like court trials and things like that.
America loves a scandal.
So the
world loves a scandal.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah, but like, you know, it's something that's very relevant here. But I think this movie, it just gets everything right. It's also, I feel like, a test of tension. It's also a pressure cooker. I do think it's also a movie that was funnier than I thought that it had any right to be, and I just think that works to its benefit. But I think Sandra Hüller in this movie just really, it's so revolve around how well she could play her character and how well of a person, the most human person you could be in those situations. And I think what it comments on are, you know, preconceived notions of people as opposed to the facts is a very interesting conversation. I think that the difference in how a French court would treat her and what they kind of see as reasons to not trust her was where the humor came from me. But I do think, even as opposed to taking that out, I think it does create a very, very, very interesting conversation when you watch the movie with yourself. And then I ultimately, again, all these movies, I just think it's shot very well. I think
I don't think this is a spoiler, but like 5 minutes in, you're like, she definitely killed him.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
It's 2.5 hours, you know, and then you're like, you know?
Yeah, because this is an interesting conversation now that you've seen it, because it's, I don't think it's a spoiler, and we'll get into the episode about it, but like, do you think she did?
I don't think it matters. I think that's
it for sure doesn't matter.
Yeah.
But I don't think she did. So it doesn't matter. But I don't think she did. But it just like. But then what happened, right?
But the way the movie,
I mean, we can talk about it.
The point of the movie is that it's like, even once we've all decided what is the truth, it doesn't mean it's true. Yeah. So even if she did actually do it or didn't do it, who the fuck cares? Because everybody decided no, she didn't, right?
And also, that's why I think, like, when you see a movie once and you're like sitting there like days later thinking about like what it made you think about, you're like, damn, like, and this, you know, this movie talking about movies that there is no English subtitle for, so we could hear Sandra Hüller talking, you know, completely in English all the time or something like that. This movie knows when to take its different changes in language. Also, as the same thing, like when you talk French, you're seen a certain way. When you talk English, you're seen a certain way. And like,
I haven't seen a movie do this since like Inglourious Bastards, where it's just like switching back and forth between the languages. And you know, I think that this movie, if properly marketed the right way and properly distributed, could be a very popular movie. I think that this, like, older people who were around when they used to just make all kinds of movies or whatever, eat this shit up, dude. It's drama, it's mystery, it's family family issues. It's just got all of these things that like lesser movies have one of these plot lines or sub stories, and then this movie has like 5, 6 ones where it's like, oh, it's kind of a thriller, it's kind of a mystery, it's kind of a drama, it's kind of a courtroom. So,
but it has heart.
But it has heart. It's funny, and it has the right to be funny. The dog probably gives the best performance. I thought that dog was dead. I was like,
the best Messi I know.
Yeah, for real.
And for me, like, we talk about like the fan cams of like Swan, right? The character. Hey,
he should play Link. He should play Link.
Drip. Drip. Like,
yeah,
so,
bro, he should be managing a mid-table Premier League team.
I mean, I'll wait a little bit more because this is higher up your list, but I agree with wherever you are. Like, for my 1 to 7 here, we're talking about. That's why I said this year's really good. Like movies that I think really are going to be in my personal top 100.
I don't mean this as a disservice, but like this is like the best possible version of something like Law and Order or something like that. So it's like that shit that millions of people eat up. This is the best version of that. So if they knew that, maybe this is the world I hope for. Where I'm like, one day people will realize I should be watching Anatomy of a Fall, not Law and Order.
The biggest hater of all time, right? The defendant.
Oh, bro, he was on her ass. Yeah. I'll save some of that for a little later too.
So that was my 7.
Let me see. So we're on my 6, right? Mm-hmm. And unless I am wrong, I believe it is. Oh my God, my list. Where'd it go? Oh, okay. John Wick. Yes.
The Baba Yaga.
Yes.
Yeah. 5 for me.
What do I gotta say here? Oh, okay, so here we go. We talk about it back to back. Pure action cinema, beautiful. It's a formula, but they do it like a 100 out of 100. Like, yes, this is the perfect formula. I rewatched it. This is funny. I don't know if this is a stamp of approval or not. My 1.5-year-old daughter watched this with me, the entire thing. Like, yeah, obviously she'd get up, whatever, but like she watched the entirety of John Wick. Wow. Like when they blew up the Continental. Oh. So I don't really have much more to say about John Wick, but I will say, like, my dream has come true. My 1.5-year-old watches movies with me, and like like as things happen, like
they blew
when things are scary, she oh, and she reaches for me to grab her. So like, John Wick was a nice experience, like when I rewatched it, I was like, this is fucking sick, man. I got to watch John Wick 4 with my daughter.
Yeah, and it's
just a hell of an action movie, dude.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll just
pure bro cinema.
Once
right?
we get to 5, right? Yeah. So that was your 6, right?
Yeah. I don't really think I have to defend why John Wick is peak,
Yeah, we did an episode on it too, you know what I mean? So I do. It stood the test of time, was my number 1 for a while, and still could be depending what day you ask me.
That's what I said about. Yeah, go ahead.
6 is Past Lives for me. Is this higher on yours or no?
I actually don't have this on my list, but I was gonna just piggyback off of you.
So yeah, Past Lives. I think a movie that I first walked out of, again, as somebody who really likes In the Mood for Love, was obvious. Again, this movie was inspired by that, but does have a different take on it and doesn't copy from it. And I think is, again, doing it in such a way that I think for this to be someone's debut film is insane. I was hearing her a couple of days ago talk about how she approached the writing and how to shoot it, and how she correlated that with the way that it was written and the themes that she wanted to portray of the movie also being shown, visually. She was talking about like the final scene, and we did do an episode about this. I forgot, but the final scene and how like the way that they're walking and how they're together for one last time, and they're like walking into the past, and then when the conclusion happens, she walks into the future. And I think obviously there's a lot of way that any director can approach the way that they want to shoot things or the way that they want to write things, but there's already a level of maturity there to think about those things that I don't, at least when a lot of directors break down how they shoot scenes, they don't really approach it that way. And I think that the way that this film was written, to also have that importance in the way that it's shot, is why you feel when you see something that's really really good. And that's how I felt when I watched this movie. It just was like, this movie is just, again, when you talk about like what the subject matter is, doing it in the best of way, and in a way that, like, they're using an old Mac here to talk to each other, and then it's like a webcam and you feel
It
emotions.
definitely captures that time perfectly. Well, I mean, I don't. It's funny to say 'cause it's not like I was an adult during that time, but you know what I mean.
No, because like
we were there.
Yeah,
you
like
know?
when the internet first broke and you could Skype with people, that's when like long distance relationships became more integral because you could at least see each other now. And I do think in an era where we always, this is obviously something that we share sometimes, is that it's very hard to romanticize or realistically keep a secret or a mystery in the era that we're in now. And sometimes that could work for a disservice in something like even maybe like The Killer.
Yeah.
As much as everything else works, you're kind of like, well, this, even, you know, as some of the dumb complaints that I've seen will be based off of
Killer
that.
fucking rocks, bro.
So, yeah. But,
Hate to break it to you, fellas. The Killer fucking rocks.
But I just think this movie, obviously, depending on its themes that we've seen a lot of times, like I said, In the Mood for Love, still has a different take to have on this and feels very personal. And I think
it's a great modern movie, like about modern time. You know, like so many directors now just go to the past, go to the past, go to the past. It's easy. I don't have anything to say about now. But this movie did have something to say about now, or at least the recent memory. You know.
and Greta Lee's just hot.
Yeah, yes, sir. But she's also giving one of the best performances I've seen in a very long time. And I will say that it's crazy that this is somebody's first movie, right?
That's what I'm
like,
saying.
So it feels kind of disrespectful, but it's like, damn, rookie of the year, but also you feel instantly classic and like you've been here the whole time. It's insane to think that that's somebody's first movie. I liken it to like the After Sun of 2023, where you're like, wow, this is this year's After Sun. Like in checking a lot of these boxes, like this emotional, not necessarily narrative driven, but vibes heavy and reflective of periods of time and how we remember it versus how it actually was, you know? So it's like, I didn't put this movie on my list because we did the episode and I gushed about it then. And also just because of recency bias. Anatomy of a Fall and Godzilla and what were some of these other ones? The Boy and the Heron. You know, it's because I just seen them and they're fresh on my mind, and I don't know if we'll have time to talk about all of these, and I want to acknowledge them. And I think Past Lives, maybe we'll get completely snubbed like some fucking disaster, but I think it's gonna, you know, we're gonna be talking about this around Oscar time again. So
I think so.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's what the acclaim is for.
Yeah, exactly. That's what the acclaim is for. And I do think this movie has the legs for that. Definitely, I think enough people like it as well. Also,
this could be somebody's In the Mood for Love.
This is like anybody who might have issues with May December. This is like this is the movie that they're like, just watch this. I'm sure you'll really enjoy this. So that's my number 6. So you're number 5. Right?
Anatomy of a Fall.
Yeah, we can talk about it a little more, right?
Not too much more though, because I do want to do an episode on this movie, the Palme d'Or winner, like you said. Just fucking sick, dude. You know, like the story, interesting. The setting, immaculate, bro. You know, it's like this is a vista. This is a backdrop. You know, like this is where movies should take place. I was expecting maybe something a little more in line like Hitchcockian, you know, because it's very much inspired by Alfred Hitchcock. I would at least say premise wise, especially because it's like just the premise of it alone. But you know the movie Anatomy of a Murder?
Yeah.
I don't know if that actually is Alfred Hitchcock. I'm pretty sure it is. But I was just like, okay, this movie is also kind of harkening back to the history of cinema, of like movies they don't really make anymore. And I say that because it's kind of shot like something like Don't Look Now, like a movie we talked about from the 70s, you know? It's like, you don't have to be doing all this cool camera work, but thank you, you know, because this could be a very static, boring, ugly movie because it's not what it's about. The material doesn't call for all of this, but it always does.
Yeah,
you know,
exactly.
you're making a fucking movie, make it look cool. And it is this interesting story about what is the truth. The murder is not really the murder, or lack thereof is not really the main motive of the story. It's about truth, reality, what that actually means. These are just human-made concepts. They actually don't really mean anything. I think it nails it, you know, that feeling of what us of humans have created is like Law and Order, you know, because it's like, I don't really know what happened, honestly. I don't think she killed him, but it would make the most sense, right? And then it's like, that's also the human in us, like, that's what makes the most sense. So let's go with that, because it's way more interesting that she just killed him than this fool just killed himself, you know? That's just the truth of it. Like, that's the scandal. That's the headline. That's what we all want to hear when we click on these awful stories about a man dies mysteriously, right?
He's like,
Fucking Tiger King, you know? Like, it's definitely Carol. She buried that guy. The
Yeah,
Tigers hate him.
Yeah.
You know, he's alive. I'm like, ah,
Yeah,
boo.
yeah, exactly. We were hating on her for no reason.
Yeah. So I don't want to talk about it too much more because I do want to do the episode, but fucking fantastic movie. From here on out, these movies all could have been number one. So yes, Anatomy of a Fall could have been my favorite movie this year on any given day.
I will say the other last thing I will say, and we'll rant more about it more, but Daniel, the kid, really good performance.
He kind of looks like the guy from Licorice Pizza. Bien. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he does.
He looks like he could be the younger brother of him.
Didn't think about that. For sure.
So what was your number 5?
5 for me is John Wick 4.
Okay.
So
Well,
we ranted
anything
about
else to
it.
say? Go ahead.
Episode, whole episode.
Since you've rewatched it, I'll ask you this. Since you've rewatched John Wick a few times, do you have a new favorite moment, or maybe something you didn't appreciate as much the first time? You're like, wow, this is actually one of the better parts. Anything like that? Have you honed in on a favorite sequence, maybe?
I do think I've actually honed in more on in the beginning when, hold on, I don't want to butcher their fucking names, but it's Donnie Yen's character when he's fighting in Japan with Hiroki. Yeah, like, so I like that scene more when they're kind of beefing out their past, and I think it's really like inspired by old samurai movies, like the framing of it. And I've thought about it some more, and I do really like the cinematography more in that one. As it stand out some more. I like that a lot of the casino there looks like a neon and stuff like that. So that and the glass scene, I think I enjoy them even more. But I think it's still a takeaway for me is the overhead shot of him just looking like a video game. It's just
with the fucking dragon breath shotgun thing.
That's just I like nothing else
yeah.
looks like that this year, and
Nothing else has the balls to
look like that. Yeah, and just pull it off like that. And I think talking about somebody who you're still not sure be like if he's a good actor or not, like Keanu, it doesn't matter here.
Yeah, no, he's a powerhouse of pure physicality.
So and this might be the last good one. They're gonna make another one. I don't know what the fuck is gonna go on.
Yeah,
so I think
like
this
count me out from here. Maybe
Yeah.
if it's good, be like, but I'm okay with how it ended. You know,
And I'm glad like this fourth one was just amazing. Like,
we should just be happy that we had 4 good ones.
Bill Skarsgård, very very cool.
The Chevalier.
Years down the line, people ask you don't like action movies. I'd be like, John Wick 4 is one of the best movies I've seen in my life. So.
Yeah, exactly. I thought I would like it less on the rewatch. I was like, there's no fucking way
It's
gonna
long,
be as
man,
good.
too.
No. I don't care. That movie fucking flies by, bro. Especially once he walks up the subway in Paris, and then it's like the last hour, whatever. Cinema, baby.
Ask Penny. She saw the whole thing.
Exactly. No, I liked it even more the second time. I was like, fuck yeah, this holds up, you know? So that takes us to 4, right?
Yes, sir.
The Holdovers. We did a whole episode
The
on it.
Holdovers.
I'll go back to bat for this. It doesn't need to be the most original movie, but it's the best version of these types of movies. So hold the L if you think The Holdovers is mid.
Yeah. Oh my God, man. I don't know what to say
It's
here.
Giamatti season, baby.
It's-
Sorry,
it's, yeah.
Cillian Murphy. Huh?
PG season, bro. I think the Academy's gonna eat this up. I think Paul Giamatti might win here. I think if you're not on Cillian Murphy's side here, I think like Paul Giamatti has a real chance at winning.
They're two
Best actor.
completely different performances, but they are probably the 2 best performances from a male actor this year.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Are they going to go for the more stoic, saying more with the eyes and the body than the actual, like, I'm acting, that Paul Giamatti does in the movie? And Oppenheimer is a better movie to me,
Yeah.
but Paul Giamatti in The Holdovers is a better performance to me. I don't know.
I just like always to be able to make somebody that is purposely made so likable in the same runtime. It's impressive.
It also feels like it's a movie that has always existed. Oppenheimer does not feel that way, but that's because it's so one of a kind.
Dominic Sessa, he's
So good.
Yeah, exactly. And then you have Davine Randolph, who has been winning in the other award circuits. I think that's the type of movie that the Academy really likes putting as their favorite, and I have no problem with it. This is my 2. So again, it has its own episode. So
the clip has been killing me. Maybe it's fine for you to sit around reading books all day, but I'm losing my goddamn mind. Jesus.
Just throws the brownie.
Line delivery of the year.
And
dude.
it's like I think that's why it's in my favorite. It's like in the line that supersedes that is from Davine Randolph talking about like, why I gotta ruin the Christmas for the little shit. If you don't want to take them, I'll take them.
Or you can't even dream a whole dream. That's so fucking
so
funny.
all of like every single character in this movie has an important element to the story that ends up, propelling you to like Paul Giamatti more, or feeling for Dominic Sessa, or feeling the pain of Davine Randolph. So I think that this is a 3-headed dragon performance here, and it's like, wow.
Yeah, it was one of the best. Like I said, could have been number 1. 5-1 could have been number 1. Yeah, I don't have too much more to say except if you have Peacock, it's on Peacock. So check that shit out, bro.
So that was your 4?
Yeah, that was my 4.
So 4 for me. I think maybe it's higher than yours, but 4 for me is the Iron Claw.
Yeah, let's go, boy.
So the Iron Claw.
This is my 3, so we'll go back to back here.
I just maybe there's a wrestling bias there. I think the story is just what is the story of the
Curse of the Von Erichs?
No, it's like a very popular old King Lear.
Oh, okay, there you go.
So it's like this story.
Okay, we're citing Shakespeare here,
and it's like this story is that, but since this is actually how this is a true story, you know what I mean? And it's just one of those movies when you watch again feels like this is what movies are made for. This is a story that has to be told, but again, a movie that does it. It's this family is a family of wrestlers, but this movie isn't exactly about wrestling. Mm-hmm. It's about what kind of trauma that kind of fame calls for at a time that's very specific to time.
It's also not really like a cautionary tale about wrestling either. It's not like wrestling is bad.
No, it's more like literally it takes its subjects in a very respectful way and puts them forefront to everything else. And I think there's a unique formula there because, they're still, one of them is still alive. And you have a reference of what somebody like that does think of the family that they had and what the most important thing is. And I think, he said it's like, it's just please show how much we loved each other as brothers. And I think it's obviously a cliche thing, like you said, to put on film. But when there is so much tragedy in a story, and to still walk out ending feeling like what they had was taken from them and you're on their side is a very interesting way to feel about something that is real. And then you're kind of like, this person actually went through something that's one of every single time you might feel ungrateful about things. Here's a real person. You're like, here's a real situation that happened to somebody that you don't even know about. So like, it puts everything that you might have in your life into perspective. And whenever a movie does something like that, I think for me it ends up standing out more because you're already going out of the parameters of me staying here for the 2 hours, and you got me thinking about it for days.
This one has really stuck with me. I've been thinking about it nonstop. I'll say you're back in the fold with wrestling. I am a post-wrestling fan. It'll never peak the same way for me as it did when I was a kid, so I don't even bother. I really liked it, so I don't think it is just fucking wrestling bias, It's a fantastic movie. You can tell it's made with a lot of love for these actual people. I know director Sean Durkin really did watch these people growing up on TV and really did care for them and their story, and has been. This is a love letter, while also being extremely fucking tragic. And we've talked about this idea many, many times, but the idea that Hereditary would be this fantastic family drama, even without the fucked up curse from a demon. This is that movie that I've been looking for. You're like, holy shit, this is it. a family that believes they're cursed, and it's just but all family drama, and throw in wrestling instead of a demon, you know?
Yeah.
And like, oh, it just fucking delivered for me on every aspect. Like, cinematography, amazing. The acting, phenomenal. I love all three of these actors. That's another thing. I was like, maybe there's some bias there because all three of these actors are actors that I liked going into the movie. None of them are like, oh, who's this guy? You know, like Harris Dickinson from Triangle of Sadness. Come on. I love the fucking bear, Jeremy Allen White, since the Shameless days. And my boy, Zac Efron, fucking Troy Bolton, you know? Like, I wouldn't say I'm like some huge Zac Efron fan, but for the same reason with Robert Pattinson and like Daniel Radcliffe, it's like, that's my guy, you know? Like when I was a kid, they told me he was good and nobody believed me. And now look, you know? So it's like, we come from a time that maybe not everybody did, but it's like, there was actors that were the same age as you, so you were like, "Oh shit, look at this guy!" You know,
I think a perfect way to encapsulate is
like Little Romeo or Bow Wow.
I feel the same way because we had our little renaissance when we were still first watching movies and when he came out of Neighbors. And he's really good at Neighbors, but it's not a movie that gets like obviously.
Is it not gay to like Zac Efron anymore? Oh,
yeah, and then like in Neighbors is not a movie that you're like it's an award, but it is a really good performance from him. But then
and he's really fucking funny.
He's been in a lot of stuff that like, hey, I mean, he did one of the Serial Killers. People really liked him then too. So that's like he's been ranging his stuff, but it's just not consistent, right?
He hasn't hit the Robert Pattinson level,
and then he's like,
he was never at the Daniel Radcliffe or like Elijah Wood level, you know. So,
and then he's like in Fire or like Starter, and like he was in movies that aren't like
he does a lot of interesting stuff, but no one sees it. It's very small. He's not like a movie star, you know. He's around.
But like the second time that I watched it, it was interesting because the couple next to me was like talking, right? They were dating, but right in the beginning when they see him, she goes like, "That's not him." She said, "What do you mean?" Like that she's wearing like a suit or something.
No, he looks like an action figure.
And then he said, "Fuck yeah, that's him." And I kind of felt like you, like this fool was like, "That's my dude up there." What do you mean?
That's Troy Bolton.
That's all him. That's all him, bro. What are you talking about? And like it was like they just were. I think if you're a certain age, you're just again there for the renaissance of any of your favorite actors, and whether I mean it doesn't hurt anybody for somebody who's experienced like that to be like, no, I can be in things that just give me a good role. I think this proves it for him.
I mean, to me, I called it a dude magnum opus, where it's like this emotional tragedy about these brothers who. It's like true sincerity and love. It's this beautiful relationship that you see in movies, but not really conveyed this way because it's like they love each other, but there will always be this respectful competitiveness between them, which I think it doesn't dive into the like they're betraying and backstabbing. No, there's still pure family love at the end of this movie. And the other thing too, it's like they all fucking look like He-Man. So that's what makes it a dude magnum opus. You're like this King Lear tragedy movie about wrestling with a bunch of fucking He-Mans running around. So it's like, yeah, as a dude, I was just like, wow. Dudes will say hell yeah, and like, hell yeah. They made an emotional movie about dudes, you know? So I would like to do an episode on this one because I think this is like a very crucial movie. I would like to champion this movie going forward, you know? I'm like, nah, the Iron Claw, I was there, you know?
I need the every physical media format of this. I need A24 to release those special books for this.
I know, where the fuck is I need my AAA 24 magazine with the poster, you know? Yeah. So I can have my slightly homoerotic poster of Zac Efron on my wall.
Real. Or Jeremy Allen White.
Yeah. Preferably Jeremy Allen White. Yes. Yeah. Yes. He kind of sidestepped the being like the American Barry Keoghan, huh? Because like, are you very familiar with him?
I just like I know that he's from the. I know that he was in Shameless, and I mean I haven't watched The Bear, even though I'd like to. I just every single time I'm like I blink and like, there's 3 seasons or
no,
2
there's
seasons.
only 2. Yeah.
Yeah, so
it'll fly by. It's so fucking good. It's one of the best shows I've ever seen.
And I mean, the concept is so interesting to me. You know, so I'm not opposed. And his like the clips that I've seen of just the trailers of the show of him being the main character, it just really seems like to me like the uncut gems type of stuff that I like. And
he's a sufferer. Like his acting is always best when he's like suffering, because he's been in a few movies where he's like played a somewhat different role and like, no, I need you to suffer.
Yeah,
that's what you're best at. You know
how to. Yeah.
So he's so good at it, and he looks like Robert Mitchum and Gene Wilder had a fucking offspring. You know.
Yeah.
But he's also kind of like a little freak. You know, like he's a short king. So
the American Bear King.
Yeah, you know, if it's like he's sidestepping it because he doesn't really do weird stuff. He just does a lot of suffering. You know, but he's America's little freak, Jeremy Allen White. You know, we're proud to have him over here in the States. You know, so that was my 3. That was your 4. So what's your 3?
We'll talk about it some more later. Poor Things. Poor Things is my number 3, which is obviously a little lower for you, but yeah, Poor Things. I've seen it twice. I just thought it was fantastic. This is again talking about a bias for me. A sci-fi movie of you have a classic type of Hollywood horror monster as well here with kind of some Frankenstein love. I thought William Dafoe's character in this movie is probably one of my favorite performances that he's had besides The Northman. I thought that everything about this movie was perfect. I think the fact to
The Northman or The Lighthouse?
The Lighthouse, sorry.
I was like, wait, he's in The Northman for like 2 minutes.
The Lighthouse, sorry. Damn, it's like, I like that I picked a movie that he was still in.
Yeah.
Just, dude, any third movie he's in. I thought it was very impressive from Yorgos Lanthimos to kind of the setting really reflect in terms of as she's growing as a person is in this movie, because you know she's literally learning minute by minute that the world starts to become less crazy to her. And at first, you know, it's based off of how the world would look if you were a baby at that age. And I think obviously that's already a very unique point of view to have. So I just, again, really ended up thinking it was masterful in the way that this is shot. Not only I'm going to make this look weird because I'm Yorgos Lanthimos, but because the story calls for it. The written story calls for it. And there's like, you know, the themes maybe of feminism. Sure, I think maybe they could be criticized a little bit, but I do think, at least from how I see things, a lot of like that gets lost is like the definition, at least for when you look up feminism, it is to just see everybody equal. But it is funny because it's always kind of seen as feminism should be higher than. That's not really like what the conversation is really based on in reality. And I think the movie has that, uses I think something people don't really like to talk about is like how much sex actually is like the number one driving factor for people, and how somebody like a baby who looks like that would actually get treated in the world. And that's a conversation to be had that isn't a comfortable one, but I think it's one that, you know, when you find out stuff like what the internet is actually mostly of, you're like, this is what people are using it for. Like, they don't have to use it for this at all. And like, this is what people are doing. So I think it opens those conversations, but it also does it in such an art house way that I don't think it beats you over the head with, you should then, you know, like in a funny way, like you should then be a cuck or something like that. But I just think it's like you should test, or you should check out your double standard, because it is interesting that if an alien came to this world, like in a lot of movies that I enjoy, or it's a robot or a replicant, you can't get these things to them as something that isn't human, because they're not based in anything factual. They're based on feelings, and feelings aren't. You shouldn't base your, again, kind of like the same in Anatomy of a Fall, these preconceived notions of this feeling means this. When you give it to an alien, they're like, that doesn't make any sense. It's not factual. So I think it gets that whole thing very well, as opposed to also.
I mean, that is kind of the vibe of the movie too. She like basically is an alien to the average person. Yeah,
and she just looks really, you know, it again, it draws from other movies like, you know, Jonathan Glazer movies that Under the Skin, that examine the same themes, but then this movie just makes it funny. And
yeah, it's a fucking hilarious movie. Let's not go in too much because I do want to do an episode on this. But one parental fun fact I noticed when watching the movie is how it starts off in black and white and then it transitions to color. That's literally what babies do. They can't see in color for like the first 6 months, 8 months. Like, it's a while. So at first in the movie, I was just like, oh, okay, cool to just do that. But then I started thinking about it, I'm like, it's because she's actually a baby. And, you know, as a recent father, I'm like, oh, okay.
I predict, you know,
that's what I want to talk about when we do the episode, is the baby stuff, because like her actual performance as a baby, as someone who has a baby in their house, pretty fucking spot on, I will say.
And that's a very hard.
So
yeah, we'll get into
let's move
it.
on. Let's move on. So that was your number 3, right? And my number 3 was the Iron Claw. My number 2 is what I think is actually the best movie of the year, but I think it's also boring to kind of say that because it's like, yeah, everybody is fucking saying that because it's pretty obviously leaps and bounds ahead of everything else, is Oppenheimer, a cinematic experience unlike any other. I've only seen it the one time, but I've thought about this movie over and over and over and over again, and it never ceases to amaze me that it exists. And then the way that they shoot it, you know, like the best part of the movie to me is the stuff that's inside Oppenheimer's mind and how he conveyed the inside of someone. Like when they say the vision and then conveying the vision, you're like, oh, wow, you know, so. Yeah, Oppenheimer is one of the best movies I've ever fucking seen. I don't want to jerk it off too much, but yeah, it is what it is. That's my number 2 movie. It's not my favorite movie, but it's probably the best movie of the year.
This is the one time where I feel like they both correlate for me. This is my favorite movie. This is my number 1, and it's also out like miles bound, like you said, the best movie. But
it's just operating on a level that like nothing else was this year.
It's just the fact that this guy could do anything that he really wants at this point, but then also chooses to keep things practical. The making of the movie is just as interesting as the damn movie. This guy's just operating on a different level, like you said. And I think when you have a director that already was good in the public's eye with the superhero movie that he didn't even really like making in retrospect, to now being able to let him cook whatever he wants, is you're watching somebody grow, and it's insane to think that somebody like this could get even better. I think he's putting himself obviously in a whole different set, like, you know, kind of like table of directors, and I think he's done that in an interesting way because there's especially with something like Tenet, maybe sometimes, you know, there's points where people are like, I don't know about this guy, and then drop something like this, and it kind of reminds you like his highs are insane.
You know, it's funny because he made his 2001, but I would say that this is Christopher Nolan's 2001.
Yeah.
And like terms of scope, scale, the story, like what it's actually saying, and they couldn't be more different, right? Because there is no character like Oppenheimer in 2001. But I think that this is that vital a piece of cinema that's like 2001, everything else, Oppenheimer.
And
of like how you can make a movie, the control that you can give a director, and what happens when you give a director that type of control. I mean, Stanley Kubrick never made a movie that made $1 billion, right? But it's insane. It's a one-off that will never probably be replicated and can't be replicated. And yes, we have Martin Scorsese running around making movies out there, and some of the greats like Wim Wenders and stuff like that still. But Christopher Nolan is a one-of-a-kind filmmaker that we should be lucky to have. Yes, it's basic, but I don't care. Like, he really is that guy, you know?
Like, it's like when the guy chose to be good. Because, like, if he chose to be bad, it's like the guy who has the power, right? If he chose to be bad, he could be making a bunch of more, like pretty good superhero movies, like choosing, like, I know how to make these really good. But it's like...
Or like they always flirt with the idea of him making James Bond, but I think he knows that time has passed, and he respects where he is enough in his career to be like, that time has passed. I can't make James Bond even if I want to. I need to make Oppenheimer. And who knows what's next?
Yeah,
right?
who knows? And it just seems like it's gonna go up from here. But it's, to me, one of the best films I've seen in my life. To even like when you read more about it, or more about it, hear Cillian Murphy talk about it, he gets the script and it's written in first person. Like just what? Like he's just like, I've never read a script this way. Like,
what do you think about this? Is Oppenheimer his best movie since The Dark Knight, or do you like Interstellar equally?
I like Interstellar probably more than The Dark Knight, yeah.
Because his Christopher Nolan's movies, as much as I love them, I like love him as a director. I don't love all of them. Like Inception, it's okay. Tenet, it's okay. You know, Memento, it's okay. Yeah, it's pretty good. Like, but I don't think it's like, oh man, look, it was right there in the beginning. You know, he's like, a lot of his movies are just okay, but then his highs are like the highest they could possibly be. Like, oh my god, he's the main character. You know,
yeah, Interstellar. Like I
fucking love Interstellar.
So it's like, I love The Dark Knight, but I still think Interstellar is better, and that's, that's saying a lot. I do like Memento. I think it's a very well done film.
I'm surprised that this is his best movie. Like, I didn't think it would be his best movie. I thought, oh, okay, it'd be pretty cool.
He sits with me like in there's only one other one that inches him right now for me, and is Denis. But I just think that Denis is now getting to the point where he has the opposite thing of like every film I've seen from him, I'm like, God damn, this might be one of the best films I've seen.
It's true, but he's leaning into sci-fi, and even he's gonna do Rendezvous with Rama and Dune Messiah, more sci-fi.
That's what I was gonna say.
He's pigeonholing himself into I'm the sci-fi god. Christopher Nolan is I'm the god of cinema. You know, like that's the difference, and that's why he will probably never edge him out unless he makes these sci-fi movies and then decides like, fuck that, I'm gonna make my Oppenheimer or whatever. You know.
They're a different track, but yeah, I mean, we made the episode. This movie is gonna win awards.
The only movie that even tried to stand the test of time, or to try to stand up to it in terms of scope, scale, money, was Killers of the Flower Moon. It's like, sorry, maybe in any other year, but not this year.
And I mean, this thing would make the joke like that's what the money's for. This one gets the money and the recognition, and that's always like before in our lifetime. The Godfather was like this, right? Just where it's literally like, sorry guys, I don't know what to tell you. This movie is miles of, like, this is gonna be one of the best fucking movies of all time. They knew then.
Silence of the Lambs.
30 years from now, it'll probably be even higher than it is now.
Usually doesn't happen, but everybody here agreed.
Even the people in the other movies, like, oh fuck, did you see Oppenheimer? So that's my number one.
Yeah, okay. So my number one has been my number one since the day I seen it. It has not changed. I've watched it twice, and I loved it even more the second time. Wes Anderson's Asteroid City. I don't have too much more to say, except it held up all year. I think about that movie a lot. I love what Wes Anderson is doing in this movie, leaning even more into the things that people criticize about him because he's safe in his own little world. And maybe that's the point. That why am I so safe in my little world? And what does this all really mean? You know? And it's just like, fucking love Asteroid City. Every time I watch it too, I'm like, this is the one to me that has the most depth in it of Wes Anderson's work, and actually leaves me asking the most questions. Like, I actually do feel like I need to watch it more times to like, what is he really trying to say? You know? So my favorite filmmaker, contemporary filmmaker, at least I would say, making one of his best movies this far into his career. I mean, obviously we fucking love the guy. We've been doing the whole series on him, but yes, I was not expecting it to be my favorite fucking movie when I entered the year. I thought it'd be like Beau is Afraid or Infinity Pool or something like that, you know?
Freight train.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, it's a masterful film. I do think I can't seem to find anything much wrong with it. I do think it has a better rewatchability. Again, I just think in the year of it being such a good year, I think what ends up being for me there is I know what I'm getting. I'm lucky to have gotten an eighth Wes Anderson film, right? Something like that.
No, he's got like
yeah. But it's that
12,
I'm getting another Wes Anderson film, and I still think for him, as much as I like Asteroid City, there's no reason for me to believe that he doesn't have his best film still to make. You know.
Yeah,
he's crazy in that aspect.
I know it's 2 hours in, so why am I saying this now? It's like, obviously this is all our opinion. You know, I'm not saying Asteroid City's the best movie. Don't get mad at me. It was my favorite movie of the year. You know, this wasn't all supposed to be stats and statistics and like, sorry, huh? The aggregate is that Oppenheimer is better. But because I said that this movie was this movie year was so good, 8 through 1 were all 5-star movies to me. 9 and through 12 were all 4.5s. It's like my honorable mentions, and 10 and 9. I think that's a really fucking good year.
For me, yeah, 1 through 7 were 5, 8 through 14 were 4.5, and then 15 is the fall off. I'm looking and be like, oh, I did forget to bring up one movie in here. That's funny.
I'll honestly say on my list, I think The Creator is the only movie that's like a bad movie that I'm like, no, I like it even though it's bad, you know?
I think maybe more down the line, like for me, was the ones like Napoleon. I defend Napoleon. Yeah, because the only one that I forgot to bring up that I did really like, I think was worth watching, and probably will get more steam later, is The Zone of Interest. Mm-hmm. I think that movie does something very unique that I don't think I've seen, as far as I can remember, and another film doing that. So I kind of like I've been thinking about it more after I've seen it. I've only seen it once, but thinking more like, no, this might be one of the most unique, very ingenious things I've seen in a long time. And Jonathan Glazer kind of did the same thing with me Under the Skin, where I thought about it for so long after, and then I was like, wait, I didn't get this, or like I didn't actually appreciate this, and that was one that maybe later down the line will maybe end up being something that later I'll tell you, be like, this movie is actually one of the best movies I've seen. But that is another one that I think I just forgot to bring up in the middle of, trying to speed it up, I think.
You had a lot of romance in your list.
Yeah.
I had predominantly, if I had to say predominantly, sci-fi, because I had Poor Things, The Creator, Godzilla, and Asteroid City, which are not, they're all not, heavy sci-fi, whatever, but they all have sci-fi aspects to them. So big year for sci-fi. Who saw that coming? And it would have been even bigger if Dune had come out.
Yeah.
This could have been the year of sci-fi.
It's like I would have been saying, Oppenheimer was nice, but it's not Dune 2. And that's crazy to think. That would have been like, and
sand.
Exactly.
Oppenheimer's cool and all, but they don't have sand power.
They didn't make me think I was in fucking another world.
Yeah.
So, we will
can't
be
wait.
There. We will be there. We can't wait. I do think this year, again, to just wrap it all up, was really good. We talked about other movies that we didn't bring up here that I think we all really enjoyed. They all got their episode, and we've even brought them up in discussion before. There was movies I didn't bring up at all that I really enjoyed as well. So I do think in recent times, this was the year that I felt like there was a lot of good movies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Other years, it feels like it, but then this one was just like consistently all year. I feel like almost every month, there was a lull in the summer and the beginning of the year, but I was pretty excited all year, like actively, like, oh, I can't wait to see this.
It's like even movies that I think are like, they were like, in terms of ratings, like, a 3-star, but I still am like, they're so good. I just maybe think that when you see all this other stuff, I'm like, this is really what I like, that you're kind of like, this is what I prefer. But the 3 stars, I'm like, I could see somebody fighting or going to bat why they think this movie is
There's
even
still so
better.
many other movies I haven't seen, too. Like the foreign films and then like the ones that didn't get released, like Hitman and stuff like that. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like Glenn Powell's other movie, Hitman.
Oh,
which is
yeah,
Linklater
yeah.
movie.
Yeah.
So it's like there's so many more movies that could have come out. And like just because we don't go to film festivals and stuff like that, it's like, how am I even supposed to see these? But
Hitman was,
could have been
I
an
forgot
even
about
bigger
that.
year for cinema, So who knows where it's gonna fall in terms of all that stuff? Not that it really fucking matters or anything, but
The normies,
it's obviously fun to talk to fun to fucking talk about.
The normies, as the killer says.
Living amongst the normies.
I will say
Not
my
a bad
favorite.
place to get what is he, like 20 grams of protein? For
Yeah,
€1?
the fucking McDonald's.
Oh hell yeah!
I think turns a sidebar question to the killer episode, but I did find it funny that the whole movie is kind of making fun of himself too. Like
It is.
That's just like that's how it's like this is a good
Okay,
movie.
2023. This is one of the last things I'm going to say. 2023 was the year of the director looking himself in the face and being like, "What the fuck am I doing? What do my movies mean? Whatever." And David Fincher decided to have a little laughy laugh, because maybe, hey, Gone Girl. Oh, this guy's fucking favorite movie. Kind of extremely fucking cringe. You know what I mean? Like, I do not like Gone Girl at all. It's one of my least favorite David Fincher movies. And like all of this cool, sleek, stylish girl with the dragon tattoo stuff. Like, what if they were fucking bozos? You know what I mean? So it's like, I loved it. I maybe more than anybody else's reflection of themselves. The Killer.
Killer.
I really fucking.
And
loved
it just-
it.
I-
and as a huge The Smiths fan, which is controversial
Come on,
to say
man.
in 2023. I'm like, oh look, fucking cool movie with some of the best fucking songs ever written playing in the background. So yeah, big The Killer guy.
Big the killer guy. Yeah, but I think that for me wraps it up. Obviously, there's movies maybe we'll bring up, like you said, for award season. There'll be movies that we didn't expect to see there, I'm sure. But yeah, it was fantastic.
If Oppenheimer wins a significant amount of Oscars, I say we do an Oppenheimer episode because we never technically did.
The Toppenheimer?
Oppenheimer.
The Toppenheimer, dude.
On
Always
that
down.
note, goodbye, everybody.
Bye.